Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the What If guy, back with another fanfiction. This is the first part of What If Issei Became a King and Got Harem. Now before starting, please give this video a like, and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Today was just a normal day, no training, no disastrous events, no doomsday going down, just a regular school day. It was a Friday too, so weekends were off. Issei was walking to the club room to meet up with everyone else from the Occult Research Club, or ORC. It was just a regular after-school meeting, but today was not going to be such a thing. Issei wasn't aware of this, however. Knocking on the door, Issei put his hand on the door handle until suddenly Drake spoke to him. "You should be careful, partner. I have a bad feeling about what's behind the door. I don't sense any particular danger of a fight, but just be cautious." "Got it, Drake." Issei put his guard up but avoided summoning the boosted gear unless necessary. Issei carefully opened the door to see Rias, Akino, Zenobia, Kaneko, Asia, Ravel, Roswace, and Arena all sitting on the couches and chairs in the room. They all looked a little dazed and different. "Hey, Drake, don't they seem a little odd to you? I don't exactly know what's going on, but they have a faint energy signature on them. It looks like they've been mentally or spiritually affected. Be careful," Drake warned him with a cautious tone. Issei felt a sense of protectiveness spark in him. "Hey, are you all right?" he called out. This snapped all of the women out of their trances as they looked at him in alarm at his sudden call. "We're fine, Issei." Rias dismissed his worries with a smile. The others gave him smiles as well, which were unusually brighter than normal. Seeing his girlfriend and master give him a reassuring smile, Issei relaxed as he sat down at an empty spot on one of the sofas. Kaneko immediately moved to sit on his lap, as usual, and began to eat some of the snacks that she had brought with her. She held up some matcha for him to eat, and gave him a sincere and warm look. "Senpai, please have some." She spoke in her usual voice. She had a strong blush on her face and she seemed exceptionally more affectionate than usual. The action seemed small, but it was quite moving, nonetheless. Issei took a bite of the green tea matcha and continued about his usual mood. "So what's the meeting about today?" Issei looked up at Rias. Rias seemed to be entranced at his gaze and a blush crept across her face, but she shook it off as she realized herself fall into a daydream. Her face returned to being serious as she relayed to him why they were here. "Duke Gremory has told us about a stray devil that's in the area. He wants us to eliminate it." Akino spoke out, but her eyes were strictly fixated on Issei, her gaze unwavering and loving. Issei felt that it was too dangerous for him to be in the room, for he felt the gazes of all of the women fall on him. Shaking off his worries, he tried to shake the attention off of him. He loved having these beauties around him, but he felt that something unnatural was going on. "Where's Kiba and Gasper?" Issei noticed that his brothers-in-arms wasn't present. "He's busy right now. It seems that he's taking care of Tosca. I thought it best that he got to spend time with her and catch up. Gasper's doing the same with Valerie." "I see." Issei smiled in relaxation. The two other guys in the club finally got to meet beloved people from their past again. The two needed a break to play catch-up anyways. Akino's gaze felt considerably more jealous, but her jealous aura quickly receded as she regained composure. Issei caught this and felt intimidation rise in him. Issei felt two large and soft objects touch the back of his head and turned around to see Roswace clinging to him, with a strong affectionate emotion in her eyes. "Roswace-sensei, what's wrong?" Issei asked nervously. "Nothing at all, Issei-kun," she replied sweetly. The usually uptight Roswace looked like a love-struck girl who had just found the love of her life. Issei felt that this weekend, and maybe even next week, he'd be in for something huge. That night, the orc had tracked the stray devil to a warehouse. Walking into the warehouse, everything seemed normal until everyone felt a lust arise from the shadows. The creature popped out from the darkness of the warehouse. The stray devil was a low-class devil, but it had gained quite a bit of power from consuming several victims. It no longer looked humanoid and was just a black spiky creature that had a red visor. It growled and roared as it showed its gnashing black teeth. Its frame was large but stealthy and it had blades for hands. "Everyone, can you leave this to me?" Issei requested with earnest emotion. "Why?" the women called out with concern. "I want to use real battle experience for my training. When I saw volley uses, I felt that he made another large gap in strength against me. I need to train more, and what better way to do that than to use real battle as training?" Issei's reasoning was valid, and reluctantly, the girls stepped aside. "Let's do this," Issei said as he summoned his boosted gear. "Boost," the red gauntlet called out as it began to work its power-up function. "Balance break," Issei called out as his scale mail enveloped him in red dragon armor. Normally, Issei wouldn't really use balance break for fighting a low-class devil now, but his training with the elder Sun Wukong made him feel like putting battle experience into his training. The last time he trained, he had to hit a clone of Sun Wukong multiple times with exactly the same amount of power. He boosted his power to a level that he felt that was 5 and punched the stray devil, knocking the air out of it as his punch connected with its chest, sending it hurling into the air. "Boost," the gauntlet called out as Issei leapt into the air. He punched into the stray devil again, and this time, the power felt exactly the same as the first punch. A sign of improvement, Issei boosted one more time and fired that obliterated the stray devil. With the job done, Issei dispelled his armor and looked at his left arm. Still got a long way to go. I still need to get stronger, Issei vowed as he and the other orc members went home. The problem with the women's change of personality became more apparent when everyone had gotten home. Roswace had immediately jumped to see if he was alright. Issei-kun, are you alright? Are you hurt or tired? She asked with worry lacing her words. She wasn't acting like usual. Yes, she was very kind and she had acted more affectionate with him after the incident with Euclid, but she was still restrained and uptight. I'm fine, Roswace-san. He raised his arms and moved around in a normal fashion to prove his point. She breathed a sigh of relief as she hugged Issei tightly. I'm so glad you're not hurt. I was so worried that you'd push yourself too hard and it made me so worried that something bad would happen. Thank goodness, she whispered to him as Issei felt her chest push up against him. Ah, this is bliss. Her chest is so big. I love it, Issei commented mentally as he savored the moment. Akino's aura began to crackle and flare as she glared at Roswace, but she calmed herself down again as she tried to control herself. Roswace's face inched closer to Issei's as she was about to kiss him. Akino appeared from nowhere and blasted a blast of thunder between. Yuffie-fufu. Looks like Roswace-sensei needs to be taught a lesson. She chuckled darkly as she began to feel anger boil in her. Why? Issei exclaimed as he and Roswace jumped out of the way from her thunder magic. What's with Akino-san? She's acting so differently. Issei wondered what the real source of the change was. Akino proceeded to fire several bolts of thunder magic at Roswace, who shielded herself with magic circles. The two flew in a dance of magic in the air as chaos began to grow. The answer to Issei's question soon arrived as Azazel appeared in the room through a magic circle. Looks like it was you all, Azazel mused as he rubbed his temple with an amused look. Sensei, what's going on? Issei looked to him for guidance and answers, while chaos erupted with Akino attacking Roswace with thunder, while Roswace defended herself with barriers made of magic circles. Azazel looked at the two women who were engaged in warfare and proceeded to calm the situation down first. The both of you, stop it right now, he yelled with a calm and leader-like tone. Recognizing his voice, Akino and Roswace relented and calmed down. The two of them had then apologized to each other for their behavior and then went their separate ways. Sensei, what's going on? Issei asked, exasperated. I had made an invention on the spur of the moment called the personality ray. It takes some dormant parts of a person's personality or even twists a person's personality and changes a target's behavior. For example, if I shot you with the ray gun, you'd be a normal and upright guy, a contrast to your current self. I accidentally left it in the clubroom when I left and it looks like the girls must have been hit with the ray when it went off. I found that the remains of the ray in the clubroom. I guess it wasn't stable and it exploded, hitting all of the girls in the room at the time. I don't know what kind of personality each girl has at this point, but I'll be doing some studies on it to try and find a solution. We can't have this chaos go on, not with Rizvam already causing trouble. Until then, bear with their behavior. Issei sighed as he feared what might happen if this happened again. Issei went to sleep that night and felt that Asia and Riaz weren't sleeping with him. An odd and unsettling discovery. Instead, he found Akino in his bed, alone with him. She was sleeping soundly against his chest and was completely naked. These two soft mounds touching against me, they must be Akino's soft. I can't get enough of this. This is the best. But why is Akino-san the only one here? Akino stirred awake as she looked up at Issei and giggled. Yuffie-fufu. Issei-kun, you're all mine now, she said in a state of euphoria. Akino-san, where'd everybody else go? Issei asked with concern. They all decided to sleep in their rooms, so I took the chance to sneak in here instead. Now we can be together forever and ever and nobody will come between us. I'll make sure that the two of us live happily together, my beloved Issei-kun. She spoke with a blushing face and lustful tone. In truth, Akino had put up a powerful magic barrier around the room so that nobody but a Mao-level person could get through. Strangely, this wasn't something she had ever shown being capable of doing in the open. Akino-san, are you all right? Issei asked with concern. Akino replied with a sweet and gentle tone. Yes, I feel perfectly happy and content with you. I couldn't be happier. I've always fantasized about waking up like this you. I want to be like this with you every morning and I also want to wake up like this with you in the future with children. Wouldn't that be perfect, darling? So, why did all of the other girls sleep in their own rooms? Where's Riaz, Butchu and Asia? Issei asked absent-mindedly. Issei had become accustomed to sleeping next to Riaz and Asia and even all of the other girls in one bed. Akino immediately began to get angry at the mere mention of other women. She looked down with her bangs covering her eyes and she spoke in a hushed and restrained voice. Why do you keep mentioning other girls? Are you having sexual affairs with them? Are you leaving me behind? I know that I talked about wanting to have an affair, but it's different now. I want to be the only one that you look at from now on. I want to be the only woman in your life. I won't let them have you. You're mine. Mine. Issei-kun belongs to me. I can't stand it. Why won't you accept my feelings? I'll make sure to get rid of the other women, then I'll be the only one in your life. You'll love me only. Yuffie-fufu. Akino began to rant in anger, jealousy, and desperation as Issei felt her embrace him. She began to pull him to her as she tightened the hold. She looked up and Issei looked into her eyes. They were blank and lifeless, devoid of all happiness, and were left disturbing and intimidating. Issei recalled watching an anime where there was a yandere girl who was behaving exactly like her, and when the guy that was dating her broke up with her, she killed him. She's a yandere, Issei exclaimed in his mind while freaking out. Deciding to rationalize in order to survive, Issei patted her head and kissed her forehead. Akino, don't worry, I love you too. In truth, Issei did hold romantic feelings of love for her, but he just hadn't said it out loud yet. This seemed to calm Akino down as her grip loosened. Her eyes returned to normal, with happiness and vigor returning. She closed her eyes happily with a smile and cuddled up to Issei, who breathed a sigh of relief. Looks like you dodged a bullet, partner. I once had a host who had a harem of yanderes. It was terrifying. Who knew that human women could be so scary? Anyways, good job handling that one. All that's left is for Azazel to report back on his findings tomorrow. I wonder if I'll survive that long. Issei decided that he would have to steel himself for what was to come. The next morning, Issei met up with Azazel, who had come up with a new invention. I did some more research and it looks like the personality change has to develop according to the person's interactions. It'll take a couple of days for the effects to wear off, so you'll have to bear with it. Azazel smirked at Issei's distress. After Issei told Azazel what happened with Akino the previous night, Azazel's face paled. Yep, yanderes are the worst to deal with. Her personality change must have developed after watching you interact so closely with the other girls. Thankfully, Akino isn't a naturally murderous person. She may be a sadist, but she won't be crossing over to a full yandere, so no worries. The personality changes will fluctuate though, so the girls will act like usual sometimes, and their other personalities will take over at other times. Azazel's research brought relief to Issei, but it also made him worried too. Suddenly Akino appeared from the kitchen doorway. Issei-kun, breakfast is ready. She smiled sweetly before returning to the kitchen to bring the food out. I'll be leaving now. See ya. On that note, Azazel left through a magic circle. Sitting at the breakfast table with Akino and the other girls, Issei felt that his premonition about this being a big thing had come true. Breakfast was quiet. Well, that was what Issei wished anyways. True to what Azazel said, Akino was acting like normal again. She would make her usual one-sama personage like normal, and she would make teasing remarks about having an affair with Issei. Rosway still seemed to be under the personality raise effects. She was clingier than yesterday and was practically plastering herself on him. Issei did enjoy the soft and pleasurable sensation of her chest on him, but he wondered if this was how she truly felt or if this was the Ray's work. He was distracted by his thoughts as he felt her soft bust shift. Issei-kun, say ah. She cooed cutely to him as she picked up some salmon and gently placed it in his mouth. Asia huffed as she pouted with her cheeks puffing. She felt jealous at how close Roswace was with Issei. Issei had yet to see her personality change develop and was thankful for it. He didn't want to see the pure Asia turn into a yandere like Akino or become excessively clingy like Roswace. Alright, at this rate, I might survive these past couple of days. That is, if more yanderes don't pop up. I've been doing some observation, partner. It looks like that nun, Asia, is glaring jealously at the both of you. I think you spoke too soon. Issei realized what Drag was saying and looked at Asia. She was giving off a jealous aura like Akino, but less murderous and much poutier. As soon as their eyes met, Asia turned away angrily and continued to eat without looking him in the eyes again. I've seen this type of behavior in an anime before. But where? Issei pondered to himself as Roswace continued to feed him. With breakfast over with, Issei decided that he'd do some training, and much to his delight, he was able to accomplish the task that Sun Wukong had set for him. He had been able to make 20 consecutive attacks that were all equal in measure, and he had increased the time that he could wear his scale mail by 15 minutes to be exact. After showering to cleanse himself of his sweat, Issei changed into a new set of clothes and walked out of the shower room. He was greeted by Asia, who was fully clothed, who had a sports drink in her hands. Here, take it, she said with a brusque tone. It wasn't like usual where it was shy and gentle. Thank you, Asia, Issei replied with a warm smile. This sent Asia's heart on a race as she gazed into his eyes and smiled. It's not like I wanted to see how cool you've gotten, Issei. HMPH, she retorted and left, leaving Issei surprised. She's gone soon, dear, Issei groaned with an unbelieving tone. He fell on his knees and went into comedic despair. The pure and innocent Asia has turned into a sharp-tongued and grueling girl. Mao, help me, Issei sobbed as his mental image of the pure and cute Asia cracked like a mirror and broke. He picked himself up and walked to the living room and saw Asia sitting on the sofa, browsing through channels, with a temperamental look on her face. Riaz and Akino were busy with college business, Irina was meeting up with other angels, Zenobia was at school for club activities, Roswace was out shopping, Kaneko was training with Kuroka, and Ravel was spending leisure time to herself. This left Issei and Asia alone. Issei decided that he didn't know what would happen to him if he tried to approach her as a tsundere, since they could be violent, so he decided to silently creep upstairs. He gently treaded on the floor and almost managed to get halfway up the stairs until the stairs betrayed him. A creak rang from the stairway and Asia looked up to see Issei trying to sneak away from her. Hey, where are you going? She exclaimed as Issei recoiled and slipped. He lost his footing and fell, rolling back down the stairs from whence he came and slid across the floor with a loud scratch. Asia walked over to him and looked at him. Stupid. How stupid are you? You should be more careful where you step. come here. She spoke with a demanding and loud tone as she picked him up and dragged him to the couch. She let him down slowly onto the sofa and rolled up his pants to see a small red mark on his knee. Asia put her hands over his knee and began to heal it with. Asia, I don't think twilight healing is necessary for this. Issei chuckled sheepishly. Asia immediately got in his face and began to speak in an upset fashion. You should know that even if you get a small injury, it'll still affect you if something happens. I'm not taking that chance. I don't like seeing you get hurt. She noticed what she just said and cut Issei off before he could say anything. It's not like I'm healing you because I want to anyways. Everyone will get sad if you get hurt, so I'm doing this so that we don't fall apart. Understand? Asia immediately left the room after healing his small inhibition on his knee and trotted up the stairs. Tsundeers, never liked how indirect they are. They drove one of my hosts crazy once. How'd your host deal with that problem? He snapped and yelled at all of them and they started apologizing and then his harem got better. However, that nun's personality change should be temporary though. Bear with it, partner. I'm trying, Dreg. Issei complained. That evening, everyone had come home and to Issei's relief, everyone was back to normal. Dinner took place like usual and Issei felt truly at peace now that everyone was back to normal. Roswace wasn't so clingy anymore and apologized to Issei about the trouble she caused and exchanged apologies with Akino, who wasn't in her Yandere personage. Issei-kun, please accept this dinner as an apology for how I've been acting lately. Roswace bowed in guilt, making her well-endowed bounce and jiggle, causing a blush and perverted smile to form on Issei's face. They bounce, Issei exclaimed in his mind. He snapped himself back to reality as Asia made a glare at him. No, it was Azazel-sensei's fault. Don't worry, you didn't cause me any trouble. I actually thought you were really cute. Issei commented absent-mindedly on that last part. Roswace blushed as she felt hope that she would be able to obtain a boyfriend, yet. I'll help bring the dishes and bowls to the sink. Issei volunteered as he walked into the kitchen. Unfortunately, he didn't see the puddle of oil on the kitchen floor, which was created by a leaking bottle of oil. Issei slipped and fell as a mass of dishes and food scraps fell on him, drenching him in a mess. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. I didn't know that bottle of oil was leaking. Roswace immediately leapt into action and began to wipe the food scraps and oil off of Issei's face. Issei immediately felt a blush creep on his face as he realized how much of a perfect wife that she'd make. She was caring, beautiful, and kind and could cook and clean to an excellent level and she was smart and strong. A dream girl, she was. It's fine, Roswace-san. I'm not hurt or anything. Issei put a hand up to calm her down but he didn't realize that Roswace had gone back into her clingy mode. Issei-kun, don't call me Roswace-san or sensei when we're alone. Call me Roswace or Rose from now on. Please. She made a cute and entrancing smile that seemed to glitter and sparkle. What destructive power. Issei could feel his brain melting a little as he gazed into her beautiful face. Okay, Rose. Issei said so a bit hesitantly as he began to get the dishes and food scraps off of him. Roswace broke into a smile and blushed even deeper. Why don't you go take a bath? I'll take care of this mess. She sprinted into action as she began to use magic to clean the mess on the floor. Yeah, I'll do that. Issei left the kitchen and had grabbed a fresh pair of clothes and headed to bath. He went to the guy's bath on his floor and walked inside to see Asia in all of her unclothed glory. She was getting out of the bath and her hair was still wet. Even though he was used to her nude sight, Issei couldn't get enough. He still developing had grown a little larger, making Issei save his sights into his mental neural hard drive. Asia froze when she saw him. Her mouth agape and her eyes wide, she grabbed a bucket on the floor and threw it at Issei. Stupid Issei, what are you doing in here? Get out. Asia screamed as she began to throw anything that was in her reach while covering her lady parts with a towel. What do you mean? This is the guy's bath. Issei replied while dodging incoming objects of random size and design. You still shouldn't be here while a girl is here. She retorted with no reason in her mind. Okay, sorry. Issei relented and ran out of the room and walked to another bath that was on this floor. She's still tsundere. Issei commented to himself. It seemed that the house's designer had more secret baths installed in the mansion. He walked through the hallway and walked up to a hidden door and pushed it, revealing a large doorway that led to a large spa and bath. He undressed and showered and finally walked into the hot spring. His hot spring was out in the open but it seemed like the bath's heat completely countered the cold of the winter night. Issei relaxed and reclined into the water before slowly submerging himself in it to warm himself up from head to toe. Little did he know, Rias had walked into the bath as she too had discovered this secret bath. She undressed, showered and walked into the water, but she noticed bubbles coming up from a certain spot and walked over to see what the source was. Suddenly, Issei erupted out from the bath with a huff as he took in a long deep breath. Having a dragon body made him extremely resistant to heat, so this water was going to have no effects of making him dizzy. Rias shot backwards and nearly fell, but Issei caught her before she fell as he instinctively rescued her from her fall. Rias, what are you doing here? Issei asked her before he noticed her body. No matter how much he saw it, he considered it perfect every time he laid eyes on her, especially chests. A naked Rias is the best. I can't get enough of seeing her. I love. Thank you, Mao. Rias stared at him as she began to stutter. KKKYYYAH. She let out a shaking yelp as she covered herself up. Issei was alarmed by this act, as she never minded him seeing her naked and never opposed the idea of him seeing her unclothed. However, this time she was screaming like a normal shy girl. "Sorry," Issei exclaimed as he gently let her go and looked away. "I want to see it. I want to see her, but I don't want to upset her like I did with Asia." Issei was in turmoil as his head fought to look at his girlfriend, while his will to live made his head turn away. Ria's was a hot blushing mess as she kept her arms and hands over her private parts. "I didn't think Issei would find this place. I came here to take a bath alone, but I didn't think that you were in here," Ria's muttered. "I can leave if you want." Issei began to get up, but Ria's dove next to him to stop him. "No, it's fine. I just wasn't expecting this. It feels so different compared to normal." Ria's confessed her nervous emotions to him as she leaned closer to him. Issei felt her voluptuous figure push up against him and her soft ass pressed against him, making him quite happy as he felt his desires being realized to an extent. Issei then realized that Ria's was probably under the effects of the personality ray, which explained her now shy and conscious behavior. Realizing that he was probably making her uncomfortable, he decided to get out of the bath. "I'll get out now. I've been here for a while already." Ria's nodded as Issei got out of the bath and changed into some clothes and left for his room. He walked inside to find that Asia was already asleep on his bed, snoring away cutely as she wrapped herself with her blanket over herself. Issei climbed into bed and fell asleep quickly, with Ria soon joining him later. The next morning, Issei woke up to find that Ria's, Asia, Akino, Ravel, Kaneko, Irina, and Roswace were in his bed. All were asleep with light snores escaping them. Issei decided that he was in quite a predicament, as he had to use the bathroom, but he was pinned down. He had to find a way out but couldn't. If he moved too much, he'd risk waking up the girls. If Akino went yandere, he and the others were dead. He didn't want to get smacked by Asia either. "Crap, this is bad. Drag, what should I do?" "Keep calm. Concentrate on moving and wriggling your limbs as gently and slowly as possible out of their grasps. Whatever you do, don't rush and stop if one of them start to move or even twitch," Drake advised him as he tried to help his partner survive. At this moment, Issei had decided to pool all of his strength into stealthily sneaking out of their grips. Drake's advice worked as he managed to get out of his situation with minimum to no damage. He gently moved off of the bed with near untraceable swiftness that the call of nature had gifted onto him, and moved to the bathroom. After relieving himself, he left the bathroom after washing his face, hands, and brushing his teeth, and left the bathroom to see that all of the girls had left his room, probably because they sensed that he had left. Changing into proper attire, Issei walked downstairs and was awaited by Akino, who had changed and was cooking breakfast. The speed of how she had moved so quickly alarmed Issei, but he chose not to question anything. He sat down in front of the TV and Asia sat next to him. "You owe me," she barked at him with an angry tone. "For what?" Issei backed away as she inched closer to him. "What do you mean what? You saw me naked in the bath," she cried out in outrage, much to Issei's fear and alarm. "SHHH." Issei put a finger to his lips to help tell her to be quiet, but it was too late for that. Akino immediately stopped stirring her pot of soup and turned around, with her hollow yandere eyes. Issei began to freak out but was saved once again by Azazel. He knocked on the door and entered after Kaneko let him in. "Yo, Issei, I came to talk. Let's go somewhere private." Azazel spoke casually. He had no idea what kind of situation was going on right now, but he knew that he should probably keep things secret about the personality ray. He and Issei walked into a separate room, but not before Azazel noticed Akino's yandere eyes. Azazel immediately paled and began to shiver as his previous escapades with yanderes had begun to reappear in his memory. Closing the door normally, Issei and Azazel broke out into a cold sweat. "Oh crap, oh crap, oh crap," the two repeated to themselves as they feared what would happen after they left the room. "Okay, listen, I brought a device that'll help you. This watch will help tell you when someone is behaving under the influence of the personality ray. The hand will light up green when someone is under the influence and will light up blue when a person is clear of its effects. The band will turn red when you're in danger of harm. Try putting it on now. The stronger the glow, the worse the situation is." Azazel handed Issei a white watch of simple make. As soon as Issei put it on, the watch turned a bright shade of pure red. Issei began to panic. The hands on the watch pointed to the door and Issei knew who was there. Azazel, feeling guilty about this whole incident, and feeling sorry for his student if he died at Akino's hands, Azazel gave Issei the chance to survive. "Alright, I'll call Barakil. Hopefully he can distract her long enough for the ray's effects to subside for the time being. However, if you do die, know that you were one of my favorite students." Azazel immediately teleported away through a magic circle, leaving Issei to ponder about how to survive the situation. Drake took this time to mess with him, making the whole situation turn into a visual novel. "This is it, partner. Are you ready? I'll try to help you as best as I can if a fight happens." Drake gave Issei mental support as Issei steeled himself to get out of the room and face destiny head-on. Suddenly, the red glow of his watch had returned to being white and the hands of his watch stopped glowing green. With a sigh and deep breath of relief, Issei leaned against the wall. "I think I lost a couple of years off of my lifespan." Issei thanked Mao for his stroke of luck as he exited the room. He walked out to see Akino, back to normal with light in her eyes, but Asia was still in tsundere mode. Roswace was still clingy, but Issei had now classified her as Dara, which wasn't too bad. Breakfast was laid out, and after everyone had finished, Asia walked over to Issei in order to finish the complaint that she hadn't gotten the chance to complete. You owe me an outing. Today, you'll be my servant. Be grateful that I don't call Issei and the good evil dragons to come and bite you to pieces. Asia threatened him indirectly to come along with her. With no other way out, Issei accepted. As Issei got up, he noticed that the watch's hands were glowing green and were pointing at Asia. However, the watch turned a light shade of pink, with the hands returning to Akino, who was casting a jealous glare at the two. All of the other women were doing the same, but they had agreed to share him for the time being, during a meeting a while ago. The two left the mansion and went to the arcade first, since Asia said that it had been a while since she had last gone, which Issei couldn't exactly remember when he had gone with her. After playing a couple rounds of different games, Asia's eye was caught by a crane game. She had tried multiple times to get a small teddy bear that looked like a polar bear, but every time she gotten close to getting it, it would slip out from her grasp. Issei noticed her frustration and chose to win the bear for her. He had come to the arcade multiple times and had become an expert at the crane game. After just one attempt, Issei had won the bear and presented it to Asia. Here you go, Asia. Issei handed the bear to her, to which she gently took with a blush. It's not like I wanted you to win this for me, she retorted as she walked out of the arcade, with Issei in tow. However, when Issei wasn't looking, Asia had a smile of pure bliss on her face. The usual innocent and pure smile had returned to her whenever Issei wasn't looking. After leaving the arcade, Asia dragged him around to multiple stores. They stopped by at a clothing store, where Asia made him look at each outfit she put on and give her a response. Asia was currently wearing a white dress of silk with a blue jacket over it with shoes of white on her feet. So, she asked expectantly. Issei honestly thought that she looked cute and pretty in this outfit. It seemed to mirror the colors of her nun outfit, and it wasn't very revealing either. I think that one's the best so far. I really like it. I think you look cute. Issei honestly complimented her and gave her a thumbs up. Asia immediately blushed like crazy and covered her cheeks as a deep red blush enveloped her expression. It's not like I'm trying to impress you or anything, Baka, she retorted as she went back inside the dressing rooms. Contrary to her previous outburst, Asia was giggling happily to herself. He thinks I'm cute and he likes the outfit. Geez, Issei-san, she remarked to herself as she began to happily change back to her regular clothes. When she walked out, she had her tsundere expression on and walked over to the cashier silently. Before she could pay, Issei cut in. He decided that he needed to show how manly he was and opted to pay. I've got this, he said as he paid the cashier. My, you two are such a cute couple. I remember when me and my husband were like you two. The cashier lady teased them as the two blushed from the comment. We were not a couple. He's just somebody who's helping me carry my bags right now. Asia politely refuted her. Right. Just know that some relationships start out this way. The cashier continued as the two left the clothing store. Stopping by at a cafe on the way home, Issei and Asia ordered their food and began to eat silently. Sorry about walking in on you, Issei apologized, as he felt that he needed to do so, since the incident happened on pure coincidence. HMPH, it's fine, Asia pouted. Issei noticed that as the day progressed, Asia was slowly starting to behave like less of a tsundere and more like her old self. A relief, really. Issei looked at his watch and saw that the watch hands were slowly losing their green light and were turning blue as time passed. Asia, did you have fun today? Issei asked her to test out if she was losing the effects of the personality ray. Asia nodded as a blush creeped on her face. I'm glad. You've went through a lot, so I wanted you to have some fun too. I'm glad. Issei felt honest relief that she had enjoyed her date with him. Thank you. I had a very wonderful time, Issei-san. Asia spoke with her tone returning to normal and her tsundere mannerisms fading. When the two were finished, they decided to head home, since the sun was beginning to disappear from the sky and the moon started to rise. Issei-san, Asia called out to Issei. Huh, Issei responded with an oblivious tone. Asia rushed forward and gave Issei a long and warm kiss on the lips as she put her hands on his chest. Thank you for putting up with me. She smiled as she parted lips with him and proceeded to walk away with an innocent and bright smile on her face. Her heart was racing from what she just did, but she felt that the sudden changes in emotion and personality within her had given her more courage to chase after his affections. Issei felt his heart skip several beats but finally managed to calm down after a period of time. You okay, partner? Drake asked him, concerned at his emotional change. Yeah, just fine, Drake, Issei replied calmly in his mind. Not voicing his thoughts to Drake but to himself, Issei made a realization. I'm not sure if Rias is the only one that'll be holding my heart anymore, Issei commented to himself as he ran to catch up to Asia. He felt his emotions grow stronger for each girl in his household, with each growing day, a sign that what he said was true. However, he didn't think it would be so bad. He wanted to be Harem king, after all. Yet, he also wanted to be someone who could protect his loved ones. The next morning at school, Issei was sitting in homeroom but noticed that Madohama and Matsuda weren't there. He looked at his phone and saw a text from them. It sort of went like this. We went to a fashion show and saw some awesome beauties. We tried to get a closer look at the changing rooms, but some giant lady bouncer beat the crap out of us. We're gonna be stuck in the hospital for a while. Matsuda's got a broken jaw and his arm and knee are dislocated. I've got bruises all over me and my left leg is in a cast. Make sure to experience some Issei for us so that we can talk about it when we get back. Issei. Issei was a bit bothered by the strange text message from Madohama and decided that he'd ignore it. Ever since he started dating Rias, he was much less perverted compared to how he used to be. This didn't mean that he had lost his lewd desires though. Kuryu was sitting in the back and was talking with Zenovia, Asia, and Irina. Like usual, Kuryu was trying to make the conversation take certain turns, specifically a teasing route. Issei learned that last night, Asia hadn't completely gone back to normal. She was still acting tsundere, but she made fewer outbursts and shouts. If anything, Issei could actually tease her and not expect a slap or injury. Say, Asia, you've been acting tsundere lately, trying to make more moves on Hayato. Kuryu provoked her teasingly. Asia blushed at the mention of his name and the mere thought of actually getting him to herself. No way, it's not like I want him to notice me. Issei-senpai is too blunt. She quickly denied, but her heart couldn't agree more. Kuryu turned to Irina and began to target her as well. What about you, Irina? Isn't he your childhood friend? Don't you want to do Issei stuff with him? You should hurry or else he'll get taken permanently. I heard that he's going out with Ria's Gremory. Irina merely blushed shyly as she tried to hide her expression. Issei was a bit worried about her. She had been extremely shy and timid around him. Normally she was outgoing, passionate, and friendly. Now, she was shy and reserved and behaved like a nervous person. Noticing that Irina wasn't going to exactly answer, Kuryu shifted focus to Zenovia. Hey, Zenovia, are you going to use some power as student council president to make it okay for you and Issei to spend time together? Zenovia looked appalled and pointed an accusing finger at Kuryu. Absolutely not. Such indecent intentions are something I would do. I would not do such indecent things like abusing power to court someone. Zenovia spoke with a flabbergasted tone. Kuryu was dumbstruck by how differently the church trio were acting. Normally, Asia would blush and wonder at Kuryu's verbal antics. Irina would go off and make a prayer and Zenovia would walk over to Issei and suggest practice. The normally innocent and gentle Asia was at tsundere, Irina was a shy and bashful girl, and Zenovia was a much stricter and upright girl. What happened? Deciding to ask Issei about this, Kuryu walked over to him. Hey, Hayato, what happened to those three? She put her hands on her hips in an investigative manner. Issei breathed a sigh of exhaustion. The previous night, after Asia kissed him, he couldn't sleep and was thinking about the other girls non-stop. It's a long story, one that I can't explain. I'll just say that this only temporary, Issei muttered before the teacher's arrival became imminent. Dropping the subject, Kuryu returned to her seat and sat down, wondering if she could have some fun with the changes that the three had undergone. With classes over, Issei walked to the orc clubroom and was greeted by Kaneko, who was munching on snacks like usual. Hi, Issei-senpai. She greeted cutely with her monotone voice having subsided a little. Partner, looks like her Nekishu nature has taken dominance in her. Azazel said that their personality changes haven't all developed, so be careful if you make her personality change into one similar to that Akino girl's. One of her is already enough. Drake warned Issei before he made his next move. Issei mentally nodded and hoped that his poor choices of words weren't going to screw him over this time. Hey, Kaneko-chan. Issei replied with a calm and casual tone. He looked at his watch and saw that it wasn't activating, so he made a sigh of relief. As soon as he sat down, however, Kaneko got off of her seat and pounced onto Issei's lap. Sitting like usual, Kaneko resumed eating. Issei looked at his watch and the clock hands had turned bright green and pointed at Kaneko. No, Issei exclaimed mentally as he prepared himself for the worst. Kaneko twitched a little and brought her skewered yakin bean jelly up to him. Issei-senpai, have a bite. She smiled and gave Issei a cute smile. Her usual monotone voice was gone and was replaced with a more enthusiastic one with a cheerful hint. Obliging her wish, Issei bit off a piece. Kaneko blushed as she took a bite from the same piece, making this an indirect kiss. Issei blushed a little too at this sudden but daring action. Kaneko hummed happily as she smiled sweetly. Being with Issei and having some private time with just the two of them made her ecstatic. Issei-senpai, do you think I'm cute? She asked with a curious tone. Issei merely smiled at her remark. Of course, I think Kaneko-chan is the cutest. Issei patted her head as she rubbed against him. Naya, Naya, Naya. She purred a little as she cuddled with Issei. So cute. Issei could feel his brain blow up as he laid witness to this cute display of cat-like behavior. Issei-senpai, Issei-senpai. She cutely giggled as Issei let out manly tears of happiness. The doors to the clubroom opened to reveal Zenovia walking inside. Such indecent behavior. Taoju-san, please get off of Hayato-san's lap. Zenovia pointed at the two with a blushing face and accusatory finger. Kaneko merely clicked her tongue in a disappointed fashion and reluctantly got off. Issei's watch immediately reacted and the time hands pointed right at Zenovia with a green light. Oh boy, Issei was going to get stressed out at this rate. Hayato-san, you shouldn't allow people to sit on your lap in such a shameless manner. Such behavior won't be tolerated at school. Zenobia started to rant at him with words about proper conduct and being aware of decency. Unfortunately, the concept of public decency was a little lost on Issei since he was a perv. "Hey, Zenobia, are you feeling alright? You're acting weird." Issei gave her a worried look. He decided that he needed to determine how exactly her personality had changed. He needed to see if she went tsundere or yandere or any other kind of dara. "What do you mean?" Zenobia made a weird look. "You used to tackle me with sequel comments and suggestions all of the time. Now, you're all strict and upright. What happened?" Issei's comments seemed to make something inside her mind jar itself. "I don't know. All I remember is a flash of rainbow-colored light. That's it." Zenobia seemed to feel a bit fuzzy in the head when she tried to think and remember about what happened a few days ago. "I hope there won't be any long-term permanent damage." Issei seriously hoped that the ray's effects weren't at a detrimental point. If anything happened to the girls in a really bad way, he'd be sure to punch Azazel in the jaw with his form. "Anyways, disregard all of those sequel suggestions that I made in the past. I won't be doing such things now," Zenobia announced with a bold declaration. Issei dropped the subject when he noticed that Kaneko had snuck onto his lap again, causing Zenobia to make another outburst about decency. "She's become a real disciplinarian," Issei and Kaneko said at the same time. Later, the rest of the new orc had assembled in the old clubroom and Zenobia had left to begin meetings with the new student council. "So for now, we'll do things as used to do like before," Asia declared, with a more outspoken tone. Issei noticed that the girls were exhibiting their ray behaviors more often than before. Thankfully, Azazel had helped him remain calm. The girls' new personalities will develop with certain interactions and then they'll subconsciously put their new personalities into action. Then, after a little while, their newly created personalities will disappear and then they'll go back to normal with no expected remains or side effects, was what Azazel said. Azazel had upgraded Issei's watch so it now had 8 hands so that Issei could tell the number of girls under the ray's effects. With the week over and the weekends approaching again, Issei had more worrying thoughts about the future. He had gone out to fulfill a client request that night so he had arrived home considerably later than the others. Issei had arrived home to his mansion and was greeted by a gifted pair of S at the door, a sight that Issei did not see coming. I'm in nirvana." Rosswace was still under the ray's effects but Issei wasn't too bothered by it. The Harem King and him relished this opportunity. Riaz and Akino were also home and had managed to take care of most of their paperwork for university. "Welcome home, Issei," the girls called out as they rushed to meet him at the same time, but when Akino saw Rosswace pushing her chest into Issei's face, she twitched. Issei's watch turned pink as it warned him of slight danger. He remembered the color code going. Dark red, near certain death situation. Red, possibility of severe injury. Bright red, run away or fight. Dark pink, moderate injury. Pink, slight danger. Bright pink, troublesome verbal situation. Issei looked at Akino's eyes and saw that they hadn't turned yandere yet, but he couldn't take that chance. Issei gently pushed Rosswace away as he attempted to change the atmosphere. "Wow, I'm hungry. When will dinner be ready?" Issei chuckled nervously, with a bead of sweat going down the side of his face. Riaz and Asia were taking care of dinner that night, so Issei was in for a delicious meal. His parents were away on business and then vacation, courtesy of Lord Gremory, so that meant that he wouldn't have much explaining to do if the girls started fighting if they were home. Riaz looked jealously with teary eyes along with Irina as they merely glowered at Issei being crowded by the several women living in the mansion. Irina looked particularly sad since she couldn't openly express her strong feelings for him, since she was an angel. If she crossed a certain line, she'd fall and that would be it. However, Michael told her that he was working on something huge, so he asked that she and all of the other angels to brace themselves and to hold on to their faith. What it was, however, Irina had no idea what. HMPH. Be grateful that Riaz Sama and I are cooking glorious food tonight. But remember that the others will be upset with me if I didn't let you eat, so don't think I'm doing this for you at all. Asia turned to the kitchen as Riaz followed her to get to cooking. Akino and Rosswace had taken the opportunity to sit with Issei on the couch, with each competing for his attention. Issei was thankful that Akino wasn't a true yandere. Normally, a yandere would have severely butchered him already in the competition, but Akino merely threatened and zapped people that got close to Issei. The other day, on the way home from the shopping district, a random girl tried to get with Issei. Being the perv that he is, Issei was too distracted to even say anything. Issei could remember it very clearly too. Flashback. Ara, yufifufu. Looks like Issei-kun and I get to be a couple today. She happily clung to Issei's arm as they walked down the street. She had entangled her left arm around his right arm and was resting her head on his right shoulder. Issei was holding the grocery bags in his left hand, so what followed next was inevitable for him to get out of. He felt like he really was looking like a couple with her and it made him happy. "Hey, Cootie, why don't you ditch that bimbo and come hang out with me?" spoke a girl in a high school uniform. She had shoulder-length purple hair, green eyes, and was quite cute. Akino immediately began to crackle with a literal shocking aura. The girl dove forward and wrapped her arm around Issei's left and began to try and seduce him. "Say, don't you want to experience me, handsome? That girl looks so plain and boring like an antique. My body is so much more attractive and mature than hers. Don't waste your time with her and become my boyfriend," she whispered with a seductive tone. Being a dumb perv at certain times, Issei made his perverted smile and was left speechless as the voluptuous girl began to wriggle her body up to him. Seeing the look on Issei's face, Akino's Yander side emerged. "Why don't you back off, slut?" Akino muttered as her eyes went hollow. "Huh." The girl made a daring look at Akino. "Issei-kun is mine, nobody else's." Akino muttered once again. "Not anymore." The random girl was about to kiss Issei until Akino shocked her with a weak surge of electricity. "Looks like you need to be taught your place." Akino walked over to her and shot weak volts of lightning at the girl, but Issei stopped her before she went too far. "Akino-san, that's enough." Issei called out to her, but Akino showed no signs of stopping. Albeit, Akino toned down her attacks to the point that her lightning was like a weak taser. Too much would cause serious injury. Issei lunged forward and stood in the way before Akino could attack again. When Issei looked at her, he was quite scared. No, he was scared senseless. Akino was wearing her sadist smile and had Yander eyes and was making her usual giggle. The mere sight sent chills up his spine. "Akino, no more," Issei warned her seriously. Akino was snapped back to her senses as she realized what she was doing. She immediately stopped and healed what damage she did to the poor girl and walked away, shame overcoming her. Issei had to make sure this didn't turn into a problem, so he called Azazel. "Sensei, an incident happened, could you come and clean the situation up?" Issei whispered into the phone. Azazel merely made a sound of agreement and sent a cleanup squad to make things seem as if nothing happened. Azazel had confirmed with Issei that he would take care of any damages and events that would be caused by the girls while they were under the influence of the personality ray. Within minutes, a Grigori squad showed up and completely healed the girl and wiped her memory. They then proceeded to wipe the memories of everyone in the vicinity of what they may have just seen. Issei grabbed the grocery bags and walked home, to which he saw that Akino had turned back to normal for the time being, with no recollection of what just transpired before. The whole time, Issei noticed that his watch had turned dark pink when he confronted Akino. For the time being, Issei had to make sure that nothing set her off. Flashback end. Issei felt a bit guilty since the look on his face had propelled Akino to go into Yander mode. "Dinner's ready," Rias called out as everyone proceeded to gather in the dining room. The whole time, Roswace insisted on feeding Issei, who obliged. Strangely, Akino didn't seem to have a problem with this particular sight. The only time she really went into Yander mode was when another girl tried to kiss him. After dinner and after cleaning all of the dishes, everyone went their ways into their rooms, but Kaneko had something that she needed to do first. She walked to Issei's room and knocked on the door. Opening up to see Kaneko, Issei cheerfully welcomed her. "Did you need something, Kaneko-chan?" "Issei-senpai, are you busy this weekend?" Kaneko was acting cute and outspoken, a sign that her other personality was in effect. "Nope, I'll probably be free," Issei responded with a casual tone. "Then, did you want to go to the amusement park?" Kaneko felt a bit nervous with this part, but she knew that he'd accept. "Sure thing," Issei agreed happily. He was happy that his cute little junior wanted to spend time with him, even if she called him a nasty perv in the past. "Then, I'll meet up with you at the station at 1 p.m. tomorrow." "Sure." With matters decided, Kaneko returned to her room as she tried to decide how she should prepare and dress up for her upcoming date with Issei. The mere thought of having alone time with him for a night made her ecstatic. She had already run this idea by Rias and the other girls already, and thankfully, nobody was behaving under the personality ray's effects, so she had no trouble getting agreement from Rias, who was the official romantic partner for Issei. The strength of her faith in Issei and her understanding of the other girls' feelings had made Rias mature greatly. The next day, Issei had arrived at the station early at exactly 12:45 p.m. so that he could be early. At exactly 1:12, Kaneko came running to him as she bowed an apology at her tardiness. "Sorry, Issei-senpai. I had some stuff to take care, so I got here late." Kaneko felt a bit bad since she was the one who planned the date and yet she arrived late. Of course, this was not a problem for Issei at all. He merely patted Kaneko on the head and comforted her worries. "Don't worry, Kaneko-chan. I'm not bothered at all." Issei couldn't help but admire the outfit that she had chosen to wear. Kaneko was dressed in a white coat, black sweater, and purple skirt with brown boots on. She had a purse slung over her shoulder and she looked absolutely adorable. "Let's go, senpai." Kaneko grabbed Issei's sleeve and pulled him along as she led him to the carnival that she had wanted to go to. At first, she was worried about the lingering effects that Rainier might have had on Issei, but he reassured her that those scars were healed and gone. They left the station and saw a massive amusement park that had a giant Ferris wheel with several shops of food and games. There were also several roller coasters that weren't to be underestimated. "All right, Kaneko-chan, what do you want to do first?" Issei had turned into the secret gentleman inside him, like when he went on a date with Rainier. Kaneko pointed to the roller coasters and Issei obliged. Apparently, the roller coaster was called the Red Blasting Dragon. An ironic coincidence. They bought tickets for two and entered the red and green roller coaster that was modeled after a dragon. With seatbelts and seat restraints intact and in place, the roller coaster fired off. The speed was so intense that it shouldn't have been safe. The speed was so strong that Issei felt like he needed to be worried for his own safety. The powerful wind in his face made his cheeks shake and feel like his head was being pushed back. The roller coaster looped 7 times and the speed made Issei give out yelps. He looked next to him and saw Kaneko smiling and giggling enthusiastically in a carefree manner that made her seem like she was having the time of her life. A rare sight to see from her. When they got off, Issei felt like he had lost a few pounds, but he was allowed no rest when Kaneko pointed him to another ride. It was called the counterclock spinner. Just when you thought things were bad enough. Hang in there, partner. Greg encouraged Issei as he staggered to his feet. It was basically a ride modeled after a large clock with the seats being placed on one hand. Issei had a bad feeling about this, but he wanted Kaneko to smile and be happy. Sitting in the seats of the clock hand, the ride began slowly as it rocked back and forth. This isn't too bad, Issei commented, but he realized that he spoke too soon. The clock instantly sped up and began to rock back and forth more quickly, with the pace increasing very quickly. Issei felt himself get lightheaded as the speed and rapid sight around him get worse. Finally, the ride hit a danger point for him as the clock hands began to spin full circles vertically as the clock hands began to move and zoom around the clock at a rapid pace. Issei let out a loud shout as the speed had finally defeated him. Kaneko stood in her seat laughing at his distress until the ride was over. Issei staggered off of the walkway and felt the world around him spin as his sense of balance faltered. He retched and wondered why he was the only one affected by the insane ride and so many others were walking away with smiles as if nothing had happened. Before he could fall over, Kaneko caught him with her monster strength and gently carried him over to a bench. Sorry, Kaneko-chan. Issei apologized sheepishly as he hunched over to try and shake off the nausea. Kaneko slowly patted him on the back to help ease him out of the nausea. No, I'm sorry for making you go on that ride with me. I didn't think that this would happen. Kaneko made a sad look, but Issei did what he usually did to help cheer her up. He patted and rubbed her head to soothe her. Like magic, Kaneko's mood had brightened up once more. Come on, let's go and have some more fun. Point me at any game and let's play. Issei took her hand as he forced his nausea to go away so that his cute junior wouldn't worry again. Kaneko took him to play ranges of shooting games, arcade games, video game racing, and some sports, and generally she took him on an adventure. However, Kaneko felt like it was him who took her on an adventure. Growing up with only her sister, Kuroka, who eventually left her, Kaneko was alone until Rias came along and brought her into her peerage, or rather, her family. Then Issei came along and brought peace to her soul when he vowed to always stop her if she lost control of herself. Now, she felt that Issei had willingly endured the nauseous coaster rides and won several games for her so that she could make up for the years of solitude that she felt when her sister left her. When the night grew late, the two headed home, with both having had their fill of food at the amusement park. While walking down the street from the station, Kaneko did something that blindsided Issei. Kaneko stood on her toes and brought her lips to Issei's. A warm and passionate kiss was shared between the two as Kaneko silently conveyed her feelings to Issei once more. Thank you for letting me have such a fun day, Issei-senpai. It means a lot to me. Kaneko thanked him with a blush before walking away, leaving a stunned and red-faced Issei. The other girls were wondering what kind of date the two had when they all saw Kaneko walk inside with a bright and cheerful smile on her face. Had fun? Rias asked her, to which Kaneko made cute nod. To be honest, the girls were a bit jealous that Kaneko got the chance to get some alone time with Issei, but they knew that they'd get a chance to spend some alone time with him as well. They'd all make sure of it. In the back, Zenovia was staring intently at Kaneko's smiling face. She was intrigued by her expression, and her new strict mindset detoured and pondered about what a date would feel like with Issei. Immediately, her heart went pitter-patter and her face began to heat up as an image came to her mind. It was that of her and several other children, eagerly waiting for Issei to come home to the family. Shaking her head to get rid of her thoughts, she scolded herself. I can't be thinking of shameless things. Deciding that thinking about this would corrupt her mind, Zenovia moved her mind to other random topics. Still, her feelings for Issei were no longer about just breeding with him. Her feelings were now of romantic desire, and they were getting stronger by the minute the more she thought about it. Zenovia had a rough night last night. She had spent a long night dreaming about Issei. She had scolded herself for having shameless thoughts about him, but was also too busy trying to calm her heart down. Ever since she started to wonder about what it would be like to have a relationship with Issei, even if she had to share him. Thinking about how dedicated he was to getting stronger for the sake of others and seeing how hard he tried to protect others, even if he didn't know them, had made her initial desire to merely have children with him turn into a wish to have a romantic relationship with him. The next morning, Zenovia had woken up to a Sunday morning of quiet. Ever since the personality ray had hit her, she stopped sleeping in the same bed as Issei. Rather, she wanted to, but her new impulses urged her to show decency and restraint. She wondered why the mansion was so quiet though. Normally, the girls would be arguing over Issei right now, but she found that Issei's room had no racket coming from it. After taking a morning shower, Zenovia stepped out of the shower close to her room and walked out, wrapped only in a towel. She saw that her door was left open and remembered that she had closed it. She brought her guard up and forced the door open to reveal Issei, covered in her bras and panties. She felt something new in her snap. An angry aura flared around her as she had now seen that his pervertiveness had hit a new level. He had dug into her laundry and covered himself in her undergarments, for goodness sake. Zenobia shouted with a strong red blush and slightly teary eyes as her privacy became violated and her personal belongings had been laid out bare and open. Breaking into a run, Issei cowered and tried to reason with her. "It's not what you think." Issei begged for his safety as his watch turned dark pink. She summoned X Durandal and whacked him over the head the blunt side of the sword, creating a loud echo of a painful crash along with the frustrated growl of a certain girl. Zenobia put X Durandal to the side and awaited to hear Issei's explanation. Issei, who had a small lump on his head, sat in Caesar position and began to explain his story. Rassei and Off-Eyes were playing and Rassei flew away. I chased Rassei in here and tried to find him, but he flew out as soon as I tried to get him out of the laundry basket. That's why you saw me like that. I'm being honest. Zenobia gave him a suspicious glare. She didn't exactly trust his words since he was a renowned pervert. Still, it's not like he hadn't seen anything new. She had already shown him her bare-ass and it wasn't like he hadn't seen her bras and panties before. It looked like her new personality was making her act this way. Man, the one time I don't have perverted intentions in a perverted situation, I get in trouble. Issei mourned over his luck. After looking Issei in the eye and acknowledging the fact that this wasn't anything new, Zenobia let him go. Thanks, Zenobia. As Issei got up, however, Zenobia's towel unraveled, revealing her ample bust and her very private parts. Zenobia's face went crimson red as she froze for a few seconds in shock and covered herself up. KKKYYYYYAAAAA. Zenobia let out the most feminine and un-Zenobia-like scream ever. Issei, you shameless jerk. I can't be a bride anymore. She shrieked as tears gathered in her eyes. What? This ain't even new. I didn't even do anything wrong. Issei complained as she would have normally tried to assault him already, yet now she was acting shy and flustered. She was even crying. You've got it really rough, partner. And now, it's going to get worse, Greg commented with amusement as he waited for the situation to worsen. Soon, rumbling and shaking could be heard as Rias, Asia, and Aquino ran up to Zenobia's room to see what was going on. When they arrived, they were utterly shocked at the sights that they were seeing. There stood Issei with a towel by his foot and a crying Zenobia, who was trying to cover herself up and was weeping in a tragic fashion. What surprised them was how she was reacting though. Zenobia would have already pounced on Issei, but it looked like Issei was the one doing the assaulting. Wait, Issei, you dumb pervert. Stop looking. Zenobia cried as her mind tried to find a cause for the blunder. Asia rushed forward and began to comfort Zenobia by stroking her back and putting Zenobia's head on her shoulder to soothe her while covering her with the blanket from her bed. There, it's okay. We'll be sure to pay Issei-san back for this, Asia whispered to Zenobia while giving Issei a vicious dark glare. Issei, were you trying to assault Zenobia, who has been pure of late? Rias questioned Issei as he cowered in fear. Aquino was giving a detestful glare to Issei. Both of the beautiful women began to produce powerful and angry auras that threatened to vaporize Issei for his supposed transgression. Issei's watch had turned red and it even began to blink. Oh shit! Issei began to beg the Mao for absolution, but it was his dragon partner who came to his rescue. Feeling the tension in the air rise to a boiling point, Drake decided to save his host since he'd be in trouble too if his partner died. Young ladies, please don't misunderstand. My partner here was merely trying to catch the nun's dragon sprite, but a few mishaps occurred and created several misunderstandings. You can ask the wielder of Durandal about what really happened. Her towel merely fell by coincidence and it made the girl shout. Drake spoke out through a glowing green circle on the back of Issei's hand. Thank you so much, Drake. I'm so sorry about all of that Oppai dragon trouble that I caused you. Issei tearfully thanked his partner as he avoided severe and brutal undeserved punishment. Aquino and Rias immediately calmed down after Drake told about the previous events to them. With Zenobia's confirmation on Drake's claim, all was made right once more. Now fully dressed and the tension diffused, everyone sat in the living room to settle matters. Sorry, Issei. I shouldn't have made you look like the bad guy. Zenobia apologized in Caesar with a guilty expression. The others followed suit as they realized their mistake and had almost caused him to undergo torture that he didn't even deserve. How can I make it up to you? Zenobia asked with a blush as she worried that he would make her let him use on her. Issei merely waved away her worries and gave her a warm smile. It's not your fault that this happened. Don't worry. Issei was simply thankful that he didn't get punished without proper reason this time. No, I have to make up for what I did. Zenobia got up and inched closer to Issei, with mere inches between them. Noticing the small distance between their noses, Zenobia blushed and backed away. Sorry, she muttered as she tried to hide her blush by looking down. What truly bothered her about the previous matter was that Issei had seen her completely naked and they weren't even close to being in a romantic relationship. She didn't actually mind in total truth, but the circumstances were what caused her to yell out in disappointment and embarrassment. Sister Griselda also told her that a man should only see her very private parts if she were married to said man. Why did she care about covering herself up now? That was something several asked, and yet nobody knew an answer, well except for Issei, but Azazel told him that it would be best if he didn't say anything about the personality ray. They didn't know what would happen if they remembered past events with their currently new personalities. Issei wanted to make dirty requests, but he held himself back. Zenobia had just burst out crying a couple of minutes ago, so he wasn't eager to make it happen again. Issei glanced at his watch and all of the clock hands pointed at Zenovia with a green light. Issei was lost at what he wanted to do, but he decided that he'd drop the matter before anything else could happen again. Well, how about we drop the matter? Nobody was at fault, so nobody should have to pay anyone back, Issei calmly stated. Knowing that Issei wouldn't comply with her desire to compensate for him, Zenovia complied with Issei's wish. Issei had remembered that he wanted to go and get some stuff for himself, like a new eroge that came out and some model magazines of some of his favorite stars for the adult industry. After finishing breakfast, he had prepared to go out, but Zenovia had come across him at the front door, for she had also planned to go out. Are you going somewhere, Issei? She was curious about what he was doing, and a part of her actually wanted to go out with him. Yeah, there's some stuff that I wanted to go get today. Issei finished putting his shoes and was about to head out until he turned around and saw Zenovia, wriggling in confliction about whether she should offer to go with him or not, but she didn't want to seem clingy. Using his awakened insight from being cured of Rainer's curse, Issei guessed that she wanted to go with him. Did you want to tag along with me? Issei offered as Zenovia's face lit up with a wide smile. Yes, Zenovia agreed enthusiastically as she impulsively grabbed onto Issei's arm. Noticing this, she immediately let go and backed away a little bit from him. It seemed like the personality ray had awakened her desire to romantically chase after Issei. The kiss at Kyoto merely hinted at this. Issei was taken aback by how excited she was at the mere prospect of going shopping with him. Together, they left the mansion and went on their journey to find their heart's desires. What did you need to go get? Issei casually asked Zenovia this question. Zenovia remembered that what she wanted to get was private, so she couldn't exactly tell him. Her impulses that were created by the personality ray were beginning to influence her judgment as well, so the book that she wanted wasn't something that she would have naturally gotten. Zenovia froze and decided to make up a lie. I wanted to find some more books about leadership so that I could be a better leader for the student council. I need to be able to learn how to think with my mind and to be more sensitive. She nervously spoke as she turned away to hide her guilty look. In truth, I wonder if I'm fit enough to lead when I'm not even emotionally perceptive. I used to be so cruel to Asia when I was still an exorcist, and I still mostly use brawn over brains. I need to become a better person on the inside, Zenovia declared with flaring determination. Issei merely smiled at her strong resolution. She kinda acted like him a little bit. She wanted to better herself to rid herself of her weaknesses and doubts. I don't think so, Issei spoke out, causing Zenovia to look at him with a surprised reaction. Did he think she was worse than she thought? I think that you are a very caring person. When we all thought Asia died, you cried for her in David Shalba to avenge her. You also try your hardest to protect your friends and you work hard for others. I think you're a great woman. Well, I'm not very smart, so it's not like my words are worth much. Issei sheepishly laughed while making an awkward smile. You're wrong. Those words actually mean so much to me that words aren't enough. Zenovia turned away and her voice grew tender and soft. Issei's observation of her character sent her heart flying and her happiness levels skyrocketed. Did you say something? Issei turned around, not having heard what she just said. Zenovia shook her head quickly. Nope, nothing at all. Zenovia beamed a bright smile at Issei, who in response, felt his heart skip several beats at her smile. Soon, the pair arrived at the bookstore and walked inside to see a large collection of novels, biographies, and several other printed works on shelves. We can split up here. Zenovia turned to Issei before walking away to a faraway aisle of books. Feeling relieved that she wouldn't be standing with him when he went looking for his treasure, Issei took off for the adult section, which was hidden far away in the store, close to the back. After hunting down his desired goods, Issei moved to the register and paid the cashier, but then he remembered that he had to find Zenovia, who had wandered off to the aisle that had instruction and guidebooks. He looked around and spotted her looking at a book. He walked over to her and tapped her shoulder. Zenovia jumped and nearly dropped the book that she was looking at. Luckily, she caught it before it could make a loud thump on the ground. She closed the book and placed it back on the shelf slowly and calmly before turning around to Issei with a blush on her face. Don't do that. Zenovia scolded him before she noticed what Issei had in his bag. How shameless. Zenovia saw the dirty magazine and gave him a distasteful look before taking the books that she had in her hand and went to pay at the register. Shameless, I said, even though I was looking at such a book. I didn't even get it in the end. Zenovia pouted with her cheeks puffing. She was so close to getting her desired object too, but Issei had come across her while she was looking at it. She couldn't have possibly let him see what kind of book she was reading since she was against shameless acts of outspoken lechery. With all of the shopping items on their individual lists checked off, the two were ready to head home. However, trouble decided that it would find the two again. As the two were walking down through the streets from the station, they were stopped by three delinquents, all of whom looked like they were no more than troublemakers. Hey, sweetie, you want to go and have some fun? One of them looked at her with lustful and disgusting eyes. He ogled her chest, which caused her to sprout a tick mark on her forehead. I don't feel like interacting with shameless people, she replied curtly before one of the other guys stepped up to her. What do you say? Who do you think we are? One of the delinquents got in her face, but that didn't do much to provoke her. Answer me. Her silence only invoked rage in the third delinquent as he tried to punch her in the face. Zenobia merely grabbed one of the delinquents and blocked the punch with his jaw. The punch knocked out the delinquent, and Zenobia proceeded to kick the third delinquent in the face and proceeded to punch him in the chest 2 times before spinning around and kicking him across the face, sending him plummeting to the ground in a fainted state. The last delinquent wanted to back off, but seeing the taunting grin on Zenobia's face incensed him to attack her, although it was futile. Zenobia dashed behind him and hit him behind the head, knocking him unconscious as he dropped to his knees. Zenobia merely let out a sigh. She was a bit irritated about having to deal with local thugs on a day off, especially when she knew that days off were going to be in short supply in due time. Issei was about to intervene, but he knew that Zenobia would be able to deal with the weak riffraff. As the two were about to leave, the 3 delinquents got up again. Although battered and bruised, they could still walk. To ch, some fighter chick like you, nobody would want. Guys like pretty and submissive girls. Some alien like you would never get a guy. You charmless by the delinquent speaking couldn't finish his words before Issei charged at him and punched him right in the mouth, knocking out his teeth and sending him skidding across the ground. I don't like it when others badmouth my friends and comrades. If you want to get all of your teeth knocked out, then get ready. Issei threatened the 3 with an angry glint in his eyes. Having understood his message, the other delinquents frantically apologized and bowed before picking up their colleague and running away with frightened yelps. Issei looked back at Zenobia and saw that she had a worried and disturbed look on her face. Something they said had hit a chord in her, and it bothered her immensely since she agreed with them to an extent. If she weren't under the ray's effects, she'd have probably paid less attention to the delinquents. Zenobia, you okay? Issei looked at her in worry, but she lied, acting as if she were fine when she wasn't. Yeah, I'm fine, Issei. She made a light chuckle, but this only made Issei more curious about how she was feeling. On the way home, they had stopped by a burger restaurant since Zenobia's stomach grumbled when they passed by it. Duh. Zenobia blushed when her stomach let out a strong and loud rumble. Ha. Issei let out a good-hearted laugh when he heard her hunger echo. Shut up. Zenobia retorted at him as she put a hand over her stomach in an attempt to silence it of its cries. Sorry, how about we get something to eat? Issei suggested kindly as he pointed at the burger joint next to them. Zenobia nodded as the two went inside. While eating, the two began to converse in conversation, but slowly, the conversation took a deeper tone. Hey, Issei, what do you plan to do with Irina? How do you feel about her? Zenobia was curious since Michael had created that special room where mating was possible for an angel without them falling. With Irina's strong connection and history to him, Zenobia felt insecure about being able to compete with her. She, a woman who had merely brawn and a stubborn head, had small chances of winning against Asia and Irina. Even though she would provoke flirtatious attempts at Issei, she secretly felt like she had less chances of capturing a piece of his heart, if not the whole thing. Well, she's my childhood friend, and I do feel something for her, but we're not exactly there yet. I think I'll wait to see if anything develops first. I feel as if there's a spark there somewhere in me. There's something in my heart that helps attract me to her. Issei gave her his honest opinion, something that Zenobia was a bit glad about. This would give her time to make a move on him and would give her a chance to advance her relations with him. Say, Issei, what about Asia? Zenobia's tone grew shakier as her worries grew stronger. That personality ray is a more serious problem than Azazel-sensei, and I thought. To think it'd make her seem this vulnerable and fragile. Issei was quite a bit worried at how much more sensitive and fragile she was, but Issei had to give his honest opinion. Yes, I do love her romantically too. She's gentle and kind, is never violent on a natural level. She's always willing to help, and she is always forgiving of others no matter what she endures. I love that part of her. Issei felt terrible for throwing this in her face since it seemed like Zenobia's mood was sinking with every word that he said about Asia and Irina. Downtrodden was an understatement for how she was feeling right now. Her sense of defeat was starting to take hold of her, and Issei knew that he had to find out why. Zenobia, why are you asking all of this? Issei was growing concerned about her as she looked like she was at a breaking point. Nothing. I just wanted to know. Zenobia made a fake smile and tried to look convincing, but Issei knew something was amiss. Leaving the restaurant, the two returned home in silence. Putting his things away, Issei decided that he needed to talk to Zenobia about what was going on at the restaurant. He walked to her room and knocked on the door gently. No response from the other end. Issei knocked again but found silence again. Zenobia, Issei called out through the door, hoping to get a reaction. Issei looked at his watch to see if it would detect anything, and he found that it did not fail him. His watch's clock hands glowed green and pointed right at Zenobia's door. The whole day, the watch was pointing at her, and Issei decided that enough was enough. Zenobia, open up. Issei called out calmly with a more forceful tone. On the other side of the door, Zenobia was in a sobbing fit. She had her head between her knees and she sat with her back to her door. This was so strange. The blunt and strong Zenobia was sobbing like a girl that had just lost the love of her life. It seemed like the words that the delinquent had said to her had affected her more than she let on. She had spent the time from when she had gotten home to now, crying in her room as her mind tortured her with the small chances that she had at obtaining some of Issei's affection, since she knew that he loved other girls. However, there stood the fact that out of all the girls, she had the least involvement with his past and she had the least intimate moments with him. Yes, they were comrades, but that didn't mean that she would have the most meaningful and major memories with him. She remembered how Issei requested and begged Michael to allow her and Asia to pray again. This act made her overjoyed since she could continue her faith, but it also started the development of her feelings for him. It hurt to know that she probably wouldn't have a shot at having a child with him, let alone have a family. Of course, these were all fabrications, but she didn't realize that. She had spent a while sobbing in her room, thinking about how the other girls had advantages over her. Riaz was his girlfriend and main lover. Akina was always spoiling and teasing him, but she would also help him. Asia was always gentle and forgiving, and Issei had went into just for her. Kaneko was constantly trying to heal his life force with Senjutsu, so she had extra private time with him. Irina was his first kiss and childhood friend, so she knew him better than most. Roswace was always giving him guidance, and she could cook, clean, and was extremely intelligent. Lastly, Ravel was his manager, and she was an excellent strategist who was always close to Issei. She had the least intimate interactions with him, and it felt like she was at the bottom. However, she was wrong. Outside of the door, Issei summoned and enhanced his hearing since she wouldn't reply. He heard sniffling through the door, and he decided that he'd been negligent enough for one day. He forced the door open with a strong push and surprised Zenobia with a loud crack from her door. She turned around with shot eyes and turned away to hide her face. "What are you doing, Issei?" Zenobia questioned him with a frustrated tone. Issei trudged over to her and sat right in front of her. He put both hands on her shoulders and prevented her from turning her body away. "Zenobia, tell me the truth. What's wrong?" Issei asked with a concerned and gentle voice. Zenobia couldn't lie anymore, she couldn't hold back. She bit her lip and tried to repress her emotion, but it all came out, regardless. I can't," she whispered, barely loud enough for herself to hear. "What?" Issei asked again. He saw Zenobia's tears trickle down her face and fall onto her lap and knew that whatever this was, it wasn't the work of the personality ray alone. "I can't compete with the other girls," she confessed to him with a red sobbing face and tearful eyes. "What? Why?" Issei was truly confused. Back then, until recently, she was always trying to take the chance to make a move on him, but now she was surrendering. "All of the other girls, they have the advantage. They have relationships that are so much closer to you. They have more special memories with you. They have better traits than me. They can cook, clean, and they can understand what's going on in the atmosphere. All I can do is break and destroy things. Why did I ever think that I could get some of your attention and affections? I have nothing to be exceptional for, and I know other men wouldn't want a girl like me." Zenobia ranted as she let out all of her repressed thoughts out. She sobbed and refused to meet his eyes as she stayed in the same position. Issei made a sigh and was ready to prove her wrong. He gripped her shoulders and brought her head onto his shoulder and comforted her by patting her head and rubbing her back to calm down her sobs. "Zenobia, you and all of the girls are unique. You all have great traits and bad traits like any other living person." Issei spoke softly to her as she still cried. "Like what?" she questioned him as she couldn't find an answer herself. "You're strong, resilient, and you care so much for your friends. When Asia was nearly killed by Shalba, you were the first to charge at him in anger and vengeance just to pay him back for Asia. You tried to help Jayasuk with his fears in order to help him grow. You made sure that he didn't lose on purpose during the match with Sarayorg's peerage. You care so much for your friends that you're strong for them. I think that puts you on equal footing with the other girls. You stand up to others and you stick to your beliefs and you're confident. Even when I reject your advances, you bounce back. So what makes you think that you're at a disadvantage? It's true that Riaz and Asia hold a part of my heart, but you also hold some of it too." Issei's words left Zenobia stunned. "He thinks of me like that?" Zenobia couldn't be more overjoyed. The one thing she wasn't confident about wasn't true. She did hold a part of his heart. He did have feelings of her. She did have good traits. All of her fears and self-inflicted mental torture were for naught, for it was all just a fabrication in her mind. Issei inched closer to her and did something that was to never be expected of him. He kissed the girl first. He brought his lips against her soft ones and deepened it with her as her sobs stopped and rejoice took hold of her emotions. She was now crying happy tears as she realized that even if she couldn't have all of Issei's love, she still had it, even if it was a piece. They soon parted lips and Zenobia wiped away her tears. She smiled brightly at Issei and hugged him. "Thank you, Issei," she whispered to him as Issei returned the hug. "Of course, Zenobia," Issei whispered back to her. "By the way, what was that book that you were looking at before at the shop?" Zenobia blushed, but she knew that she'd die of embarrassment at the shamelessness of the book that she was going to buy originally. Of course, she lied about it again. It was about fashion and makeup. Zenobia lied off of the top of her head, and thankfully for her, Issei believed it. In truth, it was a book about how to seduce and confess feelings to someone. She had scolded her shameless intents when she thought about it. "I see. I think that you look beautiful enough already, though." "Be beautiful," Zenobia stammered as she felt her face turn red and her heart started jumping for joy. Bashfully turning away, Zenobia tried to hid her embarrassment, but Issei wouldn't have that. He stretched his hand out to her, inviting to come out with him so that she could see for herself how beautiful and unique she was, compared to the others, who were also unique in their own ways like she was in her own. Deciding that she had spent enough time thinking negative thoughts, Zenobia left her room with Issei to go join the others downstairs in the living room. When Irina caught sight of the look that the two shared, she knew that Zenobia had advanced her relationship. She was happy for her. However, she felt an empty feeling in her that was followed by sadness. Being an angel, she couldn't actively pursue him or she would fall if she wasn't careful. She thought that all hope of trying to seduce and actively show her feelings to him were lost, but once more, Michael came to her rescue. The project he was working on had indeed been huge, and he was going to reveal what it was by tomorrow night. The next day, Irina was waiting for Michael to call all of the angels so that he could reveal what it was that he had discovered. Homeroom class was starting and all Irina could think about was Issei. Her thoughts lingered on how she wanted to be with him, how she wanted to have a future and family with him, how she wanted him all to herself. Still, she understood and respected how Issei loved Riaz and Asia. Being an angel, she couldn't openly do the seductive and ecchi acts that the other girls could do. If she crossed a certain line, she would fall and her dreams and spirit would shatter. When she thought about it thoroughly though, she didn't actually mind falling if it was for Issei. Yet, her faith and her father's pride also came to mind when she thought about falling. Her mind became conflicted and she could tell that her wings were flickering between black and white. She had to stop herself before she really did fall. Secretly, she had not so innocent fantasies of him. It was happening recently and more frequently. It all really started a few weeks before. Irina couldn't remember what was going on, but all she could recall was a bright flash of rainbow light. Specifically, she could remember seeing a pink light and that was it. When lunch came, Issei walked over to her with lunch in hand. Zenobia was having lunch with the student council since they were still in the midst of getting ready to take up office. Asia was, "Hey, Irina, wanna go have lunch together?" Issei suggested. Irina began running hundreds of simulations in her mind. Many were of sensual natures. Does he want to do something with me? Does he want to eat ... me? Irina didn't finish her thought as she snapped back to reality. Irina merely nodded as she felt embarrassed by her lewd thoughts of him. Issei was in anticipation and fear. He had still yet to see the whole of Irina's personality change. The other girls were already exhibiting their new personalities very often now, especially Rosway's, but Issei felt that Irina wasn't letting much on though, as if she were subconsciously holding herself back. Issei knew that he needed to talk to Azazel again. He still didn't know enough about what the personality ray was doing to the girls, and he wasn't taking chances to wait if something bad was going on. The crying that he saw Zenobia go through was enough to warrant him to knock on Grigori's door. Eating outside, Issei and Irina were actually silent throughout most of the lunch period, until Irina broke the silence. "Hey, Issei-kun, what happened with Zenobia yesterday?" Irina's tone was curious and Issei responded with a nervous look. "What do you mean?" Issei was a bit hesitant to mention the kiss that he used to comfort Zenobia the previous night. He couldn't mention because he'd have upset girls looking him in the face. "We just talked and I said some stuff to her because she was feeling down." Issei gave out a half-truth as Irina looked at him with suspicion. She could tell that Issei was lying since she knew him so well. Irina kept glaring to get Issei to spit out the truth. Her attempts were successful as Issei felt discomfort course through him. This was new. Normally, she wouldn't have resorted to using a glare to make him intimidated, but what she did next kinda bothered and scared Issei a little. Irina materialized a club of light and aimed it at Issei's head. "Why?" Issei exclaimed in alarm. "I also heard that you tried to assault Zenobia and that she was crying. Is that true?" She spoke ominously, with Issei looking at her in alarm. Her voice was irritated and even angry. Wait. It was a misunderstanding. I was chasing Rasei and he left Zenovia's room and then she walked in from the showers and her towel fell off and she got embarrassed and she started crying and then Asia, Riaz, and Aquino came up to the room and they thought that I tried to assault her but I didn't and Drake can tell the whole story." Issei ranted in quick desperation. Light was dangerous and poisonous to devils, so getting hit with a club of light was not something he could allow. Light hurt like heck. She knew he was a pervert, but even Issei had his decency. Deciding to trust his confession, Irina put the subject aside as the bell for the end of lunch rang throughout the school campus. Evening soon came. Irina had received a call from Michael through a magic circle, telling her and every other angel in existence to return to heaven for a short amount of time. Of course, Michael had already told the other leaders of the three factions about what he was going to do, and with much time and argument from others, Michael was allowed to make today's events happen. Judging from Michael's cheerful tone, something good must have been happening. She went to heaven and immediately returned to see heaven as it was being repaired from the attack that Kulipoth had mounted on it. She passed through the gates of heaven and traveled down the white stone path and went to the first heaven. Michael had granted everyone special permission to come to the first heaven so that he could show everyone the surprise that he found. After all angels had assembled in the first heaven, they were amazed to see a large white room with a radiant throne of white with numerous magic circles everywhere, with two large bundles of magic circles in the middle of the room. One was the sacred gear system and the other was the system that Michael had become the center of. Michael appeared in a golden flash of light and appeared over everyone so that he could be heard by everyone. "Everyone, I have discovered something of great importance. While searching into the system that our father had created and left behind, I found something that I believe was left behind for us. I think I found the solution to our shortage of angels," Michael happily declared as several gasps of surprise and shock echoed throughout heaven. Michael raised his hand with patient grace and continued speaking. He materialized a white box with golden markings. The box gave off unbelievable radiance and it pulsed with strong holy energy. It had power that was of unsurmountable class. My brothers and sisters, remember, keep your faith strong and your hearts pure, for this shall test us all. Michael warned everyone as he opened the box. The box had let out blinding light and it had spread throughout the whole world and all of its planes of existence. When the light died down, the box evaporated into white mist. Everyone looked around and felt that something within them had changed. Something was free. Michael saw everyone's surprised reactions and began to elaborate. I found a recorded message from our Father. The box that I opened was a box that was meant to be a parting gift to us. It will allow us to love and live more freely. We can now create and repopulate our people now, like how humans, devils, and fallen angels can. We can now no longer fall from mere thoughts. However, deeds of extremely lustful debauchery, mass and unjust murder, and other sinful acts will still make us all. Still, we can now let our people prosper once more. The birth and raising of angels will be at the same rate as that of fallen angels. My brethren, I am happy to say that we are free to love now, openly. That is all that I wanted to do and say. You may return to what you were previously doing. Michael spoke with happy and cheerful attitude as he left in a flash of light. Behind Irina, Michael appeared and decided that he'd clear her doubts. Hello, Irina. He calmly spoke. Irina turned around and bowed in respect and reverence. Michael-sama, is it true? Irina looked at him with hopeful eyes. Michael merely smiled radiantly. You can now freely love Hayato Issei-sen now. You can advance your relationship however you want. I still encourage you not to go too far though. Shameless acts of debauchery will not be so easily looked over by the system. Show some restraint when you try something. Michael warned Irina with gentle advice and soon left to meet with Serzech and Azazel. Irina wanted to scream like someone whose dream just came true. She could now freely pursue Issei with no strings attached and less restraint involved. Angels could even breed now without falling or using any rituals. It was a dream come true. Still, the angels could still fall if they went too far with their desires and deeds. She decided that she wanted to share the good news and returned to the Hayato residence that evening to share the news with Ria's peerage. She teleported back to the Hayato residence's basement and made her way to the living room. Everyone had gathered for dinner, excluding Mr. and Mrs. Hayato and the boys from the Orc. Hiba was still with Tosca, Gasper was helping Valerie with rehabilitation, and Issei was out taking care of client requests. This made things work out for her. If Issei were here, Irina would have been too shy and scared to say anything about what just happened. When dinner was cleared away, Irina made her announcement. Her vigor had remained with her but had instantly left when she was about to talk about Issei. Hey everyone, she muttered with a low voice. At first no one heard her, so she had to speak again. Everyone, she said a bit more loudly as everyone's attention was grabbed by her louder call. There's something that I wanted to tell all of you. Irina spoke with a low and bashful tone. Everyone looked at her with calm curiosity and waited for her to sum up the courage to talk. Today, Michael-sama made a discovery concerning the angels. Everyone's curiosity had grown when Michael got mentioned, but nobody interrupted her. Michael-sama found a magical box left behind by the Holy Father, and Michael-sama said it was a parting gift and solution to the angels' low numbers. The gift inside the box was a light that let all angels pursue love and desire freely within less strict moral boundaries. We, angels, can breed like regular devils, fallen angels, and humans now. Everyone's jaw dropped at this revelation. The once strict and upright race of the three great factions was now able to mingle and love freely now. This was a truly surprising revelation. So, does this mean what I think it means? Riaz asked her calmly with a knowing tone. This was happening all too commonly now. Yes, now that this has happened, I'm going to actively pursue Issei-kun romantically from now on, she bashfully declared. Everyone recognized how much of a rival she could be and agreed to take the challenge head-on. Even though Issei and Riaz were officially a couple, it was no secret that Issei had made his harem already. The girls were still competing for his attention. When Issei returned from his contract work, he seemed tired beyond reason. He wanted to get to bed, but his stomach was raging for him to eat something so that he wouldn't suffer at school tomorrow. Warming up his food, he took a bite and immediately smiled from the deliciousness. This is Ria's cooking, all right. I can tell how the spices are added in different amounts, and I can sense the emotion put into this. Issei gratefully engorged himself with his beloved girlfriend's food as the void in his stomach was filled and his appetite restored and sated. He ventured upstairs and showered and changed into a shirt and shorts and climbed into his bed. He expected Riaz and Asia to be waiting in bed for him, but he had found that all of the girls, even Zenobia, who was ranting about shameless behavior to him in the past, was awaiting him in bed. Issei found that he wasn't going to get into his bed since there was barely any space for him. Suddenly, Irina stirred and opened her eyes to see Issei. She sat up from her position on the bed and smiled shyly at him. We welcome home, Issei-kun. She stared nervously at him. Every time she looked at him now, her heart would beat faster and would start racing when romance became involved. Yeah, I'm back. Issei returned her welcome warmly. Looks like everybody took up space on the bed tonight. Irina inspected around her and found no open space for him to creep into, except for next to her, of course. She was at the farthest side of the bed and saw that she had room at the edge of the mattress. She didn't want to sleep somewhere else where Issei wasn't, and she wanted to use this chance to try and get closer to him as well. Ever since Christmas, after the incident of Heaven's attack, Irina was much more daring in her attempts at his affections, and she didn't worry about falling as much anymore. She even stuck on the special doorknob that her father gave her so that she could lure him into the room that was put in a different dimension. Now, she would look away in a mad blush and she wouldn't even look him in the eye. In truth, Irina had a dozen simulations of how she would try to get closer to Issei so that he would notice her feelings and take an active response to them. She scooted to the side and patted the empty spot next to her, signaling for him to come and lie down next to her. Seeing that he might as well just do it, Issei walked over to her and lied down next to her. This was his bed after all, so he might as well sleep in it. To his right, Zenobia, and to his left was Irina, who so kindly moved over for him to sleep next to her. I don't have to restrain myself anymore, she told herself. Partner, it seems like this girl wasn't as drastically to the same degree as the other girls. She seems shy compared to normal, but there's something else. Something hidden, Dreg informed him mentally. Issei took his information seriously, but then he felt Irina's arm pull her close to him. She rested her head on his chest and snuggled up to him. Issei, Irina whispered seductively to him in an erotic voice. Her cute and stimulating voice sent chills up Issei's spine. Now, we've come to it. Ishitsundir, Yandir, which is it? Issei steeled his nerves and prepared for the worst. Issei, I'm cold, can you hold me? The other girls took the blankets and I didn't bring one. Irina weakly moaned as she rubbed her shoulders to warm herself up. It seemed reasonable since it was winter and there were no blankets for the both of them. The extra ones had all been taken by the other girls. Seeing as how Issei's body was that of a dragon's now, he was far more resistant to the cold. Using the situation to her advantage, Irina was going to try and use her charm to get intimate with Issei. It wasn't fair that he only paid special attention to Ria's only. The other girls felt that way too. Issei was alarmed by her daring direct request. Irina looked up at him and gave him puppy dog eyes. Please, she pleaded with the most desperate expression she could make. Irina decided that she would catch up in the race for his attention. Choosing to oblige her and his perverted tendencies winning him over, Issei wrapped his left arm over her shoulder, albeit a bit hesitantly, and allowed it to rest there. Irina breathed a comfortable sigh and scooted into his arms even more. Yes, step 1 complete. Irina made a victorious look and proceeded to go to sleep, knowing she'd need rest for tomorrow. The next morning, Issei began to struggle for air as he awoke from his peaceful slumber. Muffled complaints and struggles tried to escape from him, but his cries fell on deaf ears. Thankfully, his physical movement brought attention to him. Sorry, Issei-kun, apologized a familiar voice. Air flooded into Issei's lungs as he gasped. An embarrassed Irina removed her torso from Issei's face. It's fine, Issei muttered out. This comment was going to be his undoing, however. So you like this? Irina rested herself on his torso and brought her face closer to Issei's, with mere inches being the distance between them. Irina. Issei was curious as to why she was being so flirtatious. She brought her face close to Issei's ear. What is it, Issei-kun? Irina spoke slowly in a sensual and arousing voice. The air of her breath tickled Issei's ear and caused to blush a little. She's acting like Ria's in Akino-san. She's turned into a temptress, Issei exclaimed mentally. His words seemed panicked, but he was actually enjoying the moment. Issei made a perverted chuckle, but he felt 2 auras sizzle and crackle as he turned to his right and saw Akino's and Asia's auras erupting. Issei, you dummy. People are trying to sleep. Asia scolded Issei as a golden dragon-shaped aura sprouted around her. Stupid Issei, you could have done this with me. Asia pouted in her mind. Issei-kun, flirting with another woman. Flirting with an angel, no less. Being taken. Akino muttered with broken speech and a hurt glare. Issei began to panic as his watch turned red and 3 of its hands glowed green and pointed at Irina, Akino, and Asia. Why wait? I haven't even done anything yet. Issei sat up and backed up to the edge of the bed, a safe position for him if he needed to run. Yet, the 3 girls said at the same time, with Asia being accusational, Akino being despairing, and Irina being seductively suggestive. All of the other girls woke up due to the commotion and were staring at the spectacle in front of them. What happened? Rias, Rosways, Kaneko, Zenobia, and Kaneko looked up to 2 raging women, 1 flirtatious angel, and a panicking red dragon emperor. Issei-kun. Rosways rushed to protect Issei as she prepared for the worst. Okay, that's enough. Ria's voice echoed in the room as she calmed everyone down with her strict tone. You should all already know that something like this would happen frequently, so stop raising a fit so that the underclassmen can get ready for school. Rias glared at anyone to challenge her authority to start a fight. Her mother's words about taking charge of the harem had rung in her head as she decided to show some confidence in being the legal wife and maintain order. Complying with Rias, all of the high school students went their own ways to get ready for school. Irina looked back at Issei and winked at him as she blew a kiss at him. Issei made a goofy grin but was set back on course by Akino glaring at him and Irina. At school, with lunch beginning, it was only Irina and Issei left again. They were eating lunch on the school roof and Irina happened to be feeding Issei. Here, say Irina cutely brought a meatball to Issei's mouth. Complying with her, he opened his mouth and ate the meatball, savoring it. It was a little spicy, but it had plenty of flavor from soy sauce, salt, and had bits of green onion and ginger inside it. How is it? Irina asked with a worrying gaze. It's good, Issei gave his honest opinion. Irina immediately broke into a smile and giggled. Thank God. I was hoping it was good. I actually thought that I did a bad job. She was relieved as the fruits of her labor proved to be uplifting. Issei gave her a shocked expression. This delicious food and savory soup that she had brought for the both of them were made by her. The last time he tried her cooking, he had spent a few hours on the toilet with diarrhea tearing his insides up. Yes, Irina gave him a proud look. She was aware that her cooking was terrible, so she spent an unbelievable amount of time learning how to cook from Issei's mother and the other girls. Now, she was getting closer to Asia's level of cooking. Hey, Issei, since I fed you, can you feed me? Irina gave Issei puppy dog eyes and made a desiring expression. Issei blushed a little when he noticed that how cute and pretty she looked. From her beautiful hair, her faithful and kind eyes, to her beautiful figure. He couldn't help but blush when he picked up on her many positive traits. You sure? Issei hesitated, to which Irina responded by nodding enthusiastically. Picking up some fried shrimp tempura, he carefully placed it in Irina's mouth. Irina let out a delighted sound as she chewed and swallowed her food. She was delighted that her cooking had impressed Issei, but she was truly delighted when she just did something a lover would do with his or her partner. With the bentos over and done with, there was still plenty of free time for the lunch period. Irina took this chance to make Issei sleep on her lap. She wanted to do so many things with him, and now she would do things slowly at a memorable pace. How does it feel? Irina brightly beamed down at him. If she weren't already one, Issei would call her an angel. It's awesome. I'm in bliss. Issei closed his eyes and smiled as he rested himself due to the pure comfort and relaxation he was in. Suddenly, he sensed something touching his chest and saw Irina trailing her hand around his torso. Hi Irina, what are you doing? Issei knew where this was going. Why, I'm only trying some skinship. She deviously smiled at him. She moved her hands further and further down his body, towards his nether regions, before Issei grabbed her hand and sat up. Irina, aren't you afraid of falling? Issei asked her with a very serious expression. Irina merely shook her head and decided that the time was now to tell him what had happened. Issei-kun, there's something I should tell you. Irina then began her story. After the tale was over, Issei was in pure and utter shock. So angels can't fall from lust and desires anymore. Issei was flabbergasted. Irina merely shook her head. Yes, we can fall from excessive lust. Things like merely offering yourself to random others out of pure lustful desire with no love will still make you fall. Other deeds like cruel murder and massacre will still make us fall. Irina answered all of his questions. Irina turned away a little at the end. I wanted to wait until I had made significant progress with you, and then I would tell you. I wanted to prove that even without the Holy Father leaving his last gift to us behind, I was willing to do anything for you. I was willing to make lustful attempts at you, and I wanted to prove my feelings to you. I don't want to be childhood friends anymore. I want to be a lover to you. I know that being your only lover isn't possible, but I want to be one for you. I want to be loved by you too, Irina declared to him with emotional eyes and nervousness and anxiety jumping around in her heart and mind. Issei merely smiled, but Irina wasn't done. I was so insecure about my place. I would get called a self-proclaiming childhood friend, and it made me realize that I didn't know you anymore. When the girl started to get closer to you, I saw that I couldn't get closer to you and show you how I felt, because if I wasn't careful I'd fall. Irina began to shake a little and tear up. Issei wondered what would have happened if the personality ray had taken full effect on her. He guessed that the ray only made her more daring, seductive, and insecure. He grabbed Irina by the shoulders and hugged her. I think that I always knew how strongly you felt for me after Christmas. That night, when you kissed me, I completely understood how you felt for me. I want you to know that I respond. Irina tightened the squeeze as she looked at Issei with tender and warm eyes. Issei-kun, Irina moaned before she kissed Issei full on the lips. This made the third time that they kissed. The kiss was like bliss to the both of them. It was passionate yet romantic, and lust wasn't protruding its nose in the act. At first, Issei was surprised, but he now responded with strong emotion for her. Irina, I want you to know that I still want to be a harem king. But I want you to know that I love you too, along with the other girls. Issei still held on to his original dream, an unsurprising thing, really. I know, I'll still love you, regardless, Issei-kun. She spoke before the school bell rang, signaling the end of lunch. The two got up and walked back to their next class, as they would pick up on things later. Irina now held full confidence over the fact that Issei now understood her feelings, and her place in his heart had been solidified. When school was over and done with, everyone headed home. Walking through the door, Irina happily ventured to her room as her mood seemed to radiate pure light. This was no joke either. Her halo had formed over her head, and she literally radiated light from her body. It was most likely the mood she was in that made her this way. Ravel had walked downstairs to meet Issei, but noticed that Roswace was already on him. Can I take your things? She offered lovingly, as Issei assured her that he could do it. Grrr, I want to spend some time with Issei too. Ravel's aura flared as she planned to create a chance to spend some time with Issei. Alone. Little did Issei know, and much to his forgetful memory, his watch immediately activated and one of its hands lit up green and pointed right at Ravel. Issei was walking to school, and as he traveled his daily route, he recalled the conversation that he had with Azazel the previous night. After he came home from school, Azazel had come to visit Issei, having found more research on the personality ray's effects. So, Irina's personality wasn't out there like the others, huh? Azazel was trying to form a reason about why the personality ray didn't affect her like it did the others. It looks like the ray merely released some of her inner restraints and allowed her to display a more daring and flirtatious attitude. I also heard about Michael's discovery, and I think that played a part in it. You might want to watch out. She might be even more daring from this point onwards. Issei yawned as he stretched in his chair. He had a sleepless night since Akino-san had started to have yandere tendencies again. She wouldn't stop cuddling him and whispering loving comments to him while stating that he belonged to her. It was quite a tense atmosphere. Issei shuddered at the thought of her yandere tendencies escalating to a real yandere point. He'd be butchered if Akino turned into a true yandere. He remembered the story of how Akino became lifeless and detached from reality when he died. He realized that the personality ray must have amplified her mental dependency on him to the point of near obsession at certain points. Pushing the thought of his mind as the teacher entered the classroom, Issei decided to think on this matter later at some other time. Class was boring. Madohama and Matsuda were back in the hospital. Apparently, they tried peeping again and tried to make indecent moves on girls at some sort of club that they snuck into. The bouncers caught them and they tried to put up a fight but got beat around like punching bags when they made things worse for themselves. Suddenly, the door to the classroom opened and a familiar girl walked inside. Her hair was blonde and arranged twin-tailed drills. Her height was around Asia and Kaniko's height. Her blue eyes reflected her calm personality, but a fire was hidden inside them as well. She was wearing Kyo's uniform and was apparently a second year. The girl was none other Ravel Phoenix, daughter of the Phoenix clan and Issei's manager. She looked around the classroom, looking for Issei, and spotted him by his window seat. As she moved toward him, several guys and girls looked at her. Issei noticed her moving towards him, and as he looked at her, he noticed his watch activate. His watch hand activated and turned green, pointing itself at Ravel. Issei-sama. She greeted him as she sat on the desk in front of his. For some reason, her tone was a bit cold and detached. Her gaze was stern and serious, and a professional aura was about her. Ravel, what's up? Issei was very tense. His watch reacted and its hands turned green and immediately pointed at Ravel. Now then, what will she be? Daradir, Yandir, Sundir. Hey, wait, she's already at Sundir. Issei noticed his mistake and forgot that Ravel was already somewhat of a tsundere, albeit minus the stereotypical violent tendencies. You'll have a regular school day today from 8 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. Taju Kaniko-sen has an hour of time with you after school at 3:30 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. Asia Argento-sen has requested that you spend an hour with her at exactly 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. Rosway-san will be with you at 7 till after dinner time. Haimjima Akino-san will be spending the rest of the evening with you. Rias Gremory-sama will be away on business this evening. Please memorize today's schedule. It is vital that you get used to this sort of thing if you wish to be a harem king. Ravel's flat and monotone voice was very new to Issei. He expected this tone to come from Kaniko, but it came from Ravel instead. Ravel, is that all? Issei asked hesitantly. He was trying his best to be careful with how he approached her. Ravel turned around and gave him a cold professional look. In her eyes were calculations and robotic organizations going on. Yes, she replied curtly. Issei froze in place as his cute junior manager gave him the cold shoulder. She turned around and walked away without a second glance. Issei was a bit down in the dumps as he let out a long sigh. He was sitting in the Orc Club room, with Kaniko on his lap, munching away cutely on her snacks, while filing through several requests from several clients. Ravel had made him sit down and sort through the several requests that had come to him. He had some that were about Nyotan requesting for him to bring him and friend, somebody to transform her into a magical girl. There was another where he was supposed to help organize an intervention for a pervert. The number of requests went on, and after sorting everything, he turned in the files to Ravel so that she could sort out his schedule. Whenever he tried to get closer to her, she would brush him off and get back to work, while telling him to get to work also. He missed that tsundere Ravel who would bake cakes for him and would shyly talk to him with her cute and hesitant blush. The new Ravel was even more efficient and tactical, but Issei wasn't sure he liked the mechanical mindset of her new personality. Azazel said that he couldn't really do much at this point since he didn't want things to mess up even further. However, there was something else that Azazel withheld from Issei. He wanted Issei to go through this and understand that being a harem king wouldn't be so easy. He'd have to deal with all types of girls, and he would have to be able to sort out his troubles when it came his harem. After spending an afternoon of snacks and games, Issei and Kaniko went home, where he would have to put up with tsundere Asia. Issei, bring me tea. Asia was hollering from the living room as she was reading a book. Issei was a bit exhausted from the numerous deeds that she made him do. She made him buy her a limited-time cake from the local bakery. She made him massage her shoulders, and she even made him scrub her back for her in the bath. Asia's chest has grown even more. She'll get closer to Akino-san's figure at this rate. Issei noted happily to himself as he walked to his room. He decided to kill some time and decided that he'd play some games with Off-Eyes, who was merely dilly-dallying around the mansion. He didn't get much time with her since the other girls were taking up huge portions of his time. Hey, Off-Ice. Doing okay? Issei patted her head as he sat down and grabbed a controller to play with her. Yes, I am doing fine, Off-Ice replied in her usual monotone voice. Issei merely smiled and spent a whole hour playing with her. It felt nice to be able to go at his own pace for a change. He didn't have to obey any orders, take requests, and get cuddled when he was with Off-Ice. He merely hoped that Off-Ice didn't pick up on any of the girl's new tendencies. When he looked at the time, it was 6:50. It was time for him to go and meet with Rosswace. He ventured downstairs to the kitchen and saw her humming happily as she cooked dinner. Issei noted to himself that her cooking rivaled the two great one-samas in Asia. He walked next to her and lightly poked her sides. She yelped and turned around with a stunned look and blushed when she saw how close Issei was to her face. Issei-kun. She was flustered when her lips nearly touched his. Sorry, I couldn't resist. Issei made an apologetic look when she turned around with a maddened red face. Rosswace turned around and continued cooking. It's fine, Issei-kun. I'm glad that you felt that way. What do you want for dinner? I can cook whatever you want, Rosswace sweetly inquired. Issei thought for a moment and answered, I'm fine with anything that you cook, Rosswace. Issei was truly okay with whatever she came up with. Rosswace nodded in recognition and continued what she was doing. Issei was sure that she would make the perfect housewife, and it excited him, knowing that she had feelings for him. After dinner, Issei retired to his room, but he was caught by the stairs by Akino. She giggled happily as she snaked her arm around his and walked with him up the stairs. She was wearing her shrine maiden robe, so Issei expected something erotic to come along. Partner, be careful with how you tread now. One false word and you'll be beheaded with jealous love. Drake gave wise counsel as Issei took heed but also felt confusion. He looked at his watch and the hands were glowing green and were pointing at Akino. Issei's watch was still white, so it meant he was still safe. He was sure that if he mentioned the other girls, he was dead meat. Her yandere tendencies were growing stronger, so he had to be much more careful. He thanked the Mao that Akino was still reasonable. If the other girls initiated contact, she didn't go yandere, but if Issei himself initiated Ekai situations, he'd be in serious danger. Issei had changed into a white shirt and shorts and was lying in bed with an unclothed Akino, sleeping under the sheets with him, with her arms around him. There were clearly no signs of her letting go of him either. Issei-kun, looks like I get you all to myself tonight too. I'm so happy. She nuzzled into his chest as she smiled happily. Me too. Issei was being honest with this particular comment. He enjoyed being with Akino, so he didn't mind her at current time. Within short time, the pair fell asleep, with Riaz arriving home later that night. Issei woke up the next morning and found himself alone with Riaz and Akino, both undressed and under the sheets with him. A normal sight these days. He got out of bed, washed his face, brushed his teeth, and changed and proceeded to head downstairs, hoping to find breakfast. He had picked up some cooking from his mom when he asked to learn a little, in case situations came to bad outcomes, like the girls not being home to cook or them being too mad at him for some unforeseen reason. He found that Ravel was already cooking breakfast with her new cool and calm look. She was making pancakes, the same ones that she had made for him during the training with Riser. Issei smiled and felt gratitude for her hard work. He continued downstairs and sat down at the dining room, patiently waiting for her to be ready to serve breakfast. Within an hour, she had made several dozens of pancakes, with there being easily enough to feed everyone in the mansion. Issei noticed that she had been working non-stop with cold determination ever since the whole personality Ray fiasco started. She didn't spend much time with him and was constantly sorting out his schedule, replying to messages, organizing his business affairs, and managing his money from Oppai Dragon. She clearly looked okay, but Issei decided that he needed her to relax before she burned out in due time. Issei-sama, everyone, breakfast is ready. Ravel called out from the kitchen as she came out with several plates of pancakes and dispensers for syrup. With one bite, Issei felt awake and energized as he savored the sweet buttery pancakes. While savoring the sweet pancakes, Issei was trying to think of how to get Ravel to relax for the day. He had taken Kaneko to the amusement park. He took Asia clothes shopping and to the arcade. He went with Zenobia to the bookstore and then to a burger restaurant. He didn't really go anywhere with Irina, but he knew he'd have to go somewhere with her too. Finally, he remembered the Winter Medieval Festival that was coming to Kyoto. As soon as he recalled it, he knew it would be a good place for her to relax. It was rumored to be full of European medieval stuff, and it was said to be a fun place, like a Renaissance festival. The festival was supposed to start at 9 a.m. today. It was exactly 8 a.m. today, so there was time to get to the festival before crowds started gathering around the tickets. When the other girls had all left the room, Issei took this chance to ask Ravel out. Subconsciously, this whole personality Ray had been making Issei more confident and less of an open pervert. A good sign, since he didn't try to strip any beautiful girl in battle and he didn't voice his lewd thoughts out loud anymore. Ravel, Issei walked up to her and gripped both of her shoulders gently. Ravel, for a moment, looked surprised but quickly regained her composure. What is it, Issei-sama? Ravel asked with her icy tone. Go out with me today. Issei knew he was being blunt, but he wouldn't let her say no. She deserved a break with all of her hard work. I'm sorry, Issei. Ravel was about to decline, but Issei wasn't taking no for an answer. Ravel, you're my manager, right? Ravel merely nodded. Isn't it the manager's job to help take care of the person that they are helping? Ravel nodded again. Then, for me and my health, go out with me today. Issei adamantly pressed on. He wasn't sure he liked this new Ravel. He liked how this new her was even more efficient than before, but she lacked the emotion that the real her had. Ravel paused for a while and nodded, agreeing to his demands. All right, go and change into warm attire and then we'll leave. Issei felt joy and relief as Ravel walked up the stairs to do as told. I have to say, you handled that well, partner. You didn't let her refuse and you even got her to agree without arguing. You're improving. All of my past hosts had harems, of course, so I'm not too surprised with your approach. Drake was now certain that Rainer's curse was gone. The old hesitant Issei was reformed into a stronger Issei. Issei changed into a black coat with a red scarf and black jeans. When Ravel came downstairs, she was wearing a red coat with a gold scarf, white skirt, and black boots. There was a decent amount of snow outside, so boots were a good idea. Still, with one being a dragon and the other a phoenix, the cold wasn't much of an issue. Shall we go? Issei extended a hand, which Ravel took it nonchalantly, though this was a facade to mask her blush. Hopping onto the station and darting to another area of Kuo, the pair arrived to a forest area in Kuo. They had walked from the station all the way to the woods where the festival was to happen. They saw rows of torches lighting a path to a gate. The gate had a post put there, with a person inside, ready to pass out tickets. The fee was 2,000 yen, a fee that Issei easily paid for, to Ravel's protest. Issei-sama, a small fee like that could be easily paid by me, who is of high class. Please spend your fines more wisely. Ravel gave Issei a lecture about money, a lecture which he didn't pay much attention to. However, thank you, Ravel added in the last note with a small blush. Anytime, Ravel Issei smiled at her, causing her heart to go pitter-patter. They passed through the gates and were greeted by a unique sight. There were several medieval booths and shops that sold accessories, jewelry paintings, cosplay items, and different Western foods. There were people dressed up in suits of armor, dresses, and clothing that was supposed to be from Britain's old days. Ravel's attention was caught by a poster that showed a play that was to start in a couple of minutes. The poster talked about a knight in shining armor saving a princess that was being captured by an evil warlord and his evil henchmen. Issei saw her eyeing the poster and took her hand and led her to the theater that was set up for the festival. They took their seats and Issei managed to get them high-class seats where they had the best view for the play. As the curtain rose, Issei saw Ravel's eyes light up. It was clear that she wasn't as icy as she had seemed. Issei just needed to melt the ice around her with certain things that struck her fancy. Ravel was thoroughly enjoying the play as it unfolded. A young princess was going to marry a man that she knew since birth, but he soon died before they could marry. The man had gone off to war and promised to return but didn't, and news of his death had reached the princess, who swore off marriage out of faith to her departed beloved. This brought a sense of disappointment to her until the next part of the play came. The princess would refuse anyone who came for her hand in marriage as days went by. Soon, attempt after attempt, the princess was about to be forced into a marriage with death threats launched against her parents and her people. On the day of the dreaded ceremony, the evil groom-to-be and his army were defeated by a single hero in shining armor, who did so single-handedly. When the armored hero took off his helm, it was none other than the man she had fallen in love with. The man who was said to have died in battle was standing in front of her, ready to marry her after saving her. The play ended on a happy note as the princess and her hero were finally able to keep their promise, and they lived happily as king and queen. When the play ended, everyone rose from their seats and clapped vigorously, including Ravel. Issei was happy that she enjoyed herself, as he could sense the thin layer of ice around her heart being thawed out. They left the theater and Issei was eager to return her to her old self. He decided that he was going to include her in his peerage when he became a high-class devil and would strive to do so that he could make the women around him happy and so he could protect them. Ravel, how about we go there? Issei pointed at an archery range. Ravel wasn't exactly sure about it but agreed. They each stood in a different range and listened to the instructor and the rules before finally beginning the game. Issei wasn't such a bad shot since he hit 6 targets out of 12, but Ravel was something else. She shot all 12 targets and won herself a stuffed dragon plushie as a prize. Next was knife throwing, which Issei was freaking out over. He had been chosen as a volunteer from the crowd since he couldn't let Ravel do it. That young miss, how about you volunteer for the knife throw, bellowed the show performer. Issei had immediately darted in for her own safety. I'll do it instead. I've been wanting to volunteer, Issei declared with bravado. In truth, he was freaking out since he didn't exactly trust the performers and he was being spun on a wheel at an alarming speed. I've got a bad feeling about this. Issei felt his dread increase with each step he took up the stairs. Be strong, partner. If anything, I'll change parts of your body so that you won't feel any pain. I can't exactly change you into a dragon in front of all of these people though. Drake did his best to soothe Issei, but it didn't help much. I don't want anything sticking itself into any part of me, especially if it's a weapon. At last, Issei was strapped onto the wheel and was spun around at a nauseous speed. Go mighty ga. Issei's words weren't even comprehensible since the wheel was so fast. When he saw Ravel giggling a little, Issei felt that this was worth it and ignored any further complaints that his mind and body made. Finally, the knife thrower aimed his 5 knives and threw them one at a time. I will not fear, Issei said to himself as one knife embedded itself next to his left cheek. I will not fear. The second knife impaled the spot close to his right cheek. I shall not fear. The third knife hit a spot that was very close to his left armpit. He could feel the cold metal close to his skin. A bad sign. I cannot fear. Issei was starting to panic as the fourth knife barely missed his right arm. At long last, the last knife came. When Issei saw where the knife thrower was aiming, he was sweating buckets. There was a gold star directly under his crotch, and judging by the growing danger that the knife thrower was presenting him, Issei was sure that the knife would definitely connect with his groin. I must fear. Not there. Issei had lost all reason and was now officially freaking out. He shuddered as he tried to regain composure. The fifth knife came and barely missed his manhood. The knife had begun to drop a little and barely hit the golden star. Thank you, gravity. Issei gave his sincere gratitude to the force. Thank you, brave volunteer. If you wish to show your bravery again, come here once more and show your courage. Tada, the performer loudly declared as Issei walked off the stage. When he walked over to Ravel, she was giggling to herself. She couldn't help it when she saw Issei's expressions. Issei was a bit disturbed at how she enjoyed watching his torment but let it slide when he saw her smiling and laughing. Let's go somewhere else, Issei suggested, to which Ravel agreed. Yes, Issei-sama, Ravel replied with a slightly more cheerful look. They walked and their eye was caught by a high striker contest. Ravel caught sight of a charm necklace that was a prize and actually wanted to win it, but she didn't have much faith in her physical strength. She relied more on tactics and her inherent abilities. Seeing her longing, Issei walked forward and took hold of the hammer and proceeded to slam the hammer onto the scale, sending the puck flying into the bell, causing it to ring and echo all over the festival grounds. Well, we have a winner, choose a prize. The employee gestured to the booth next to him, which was chock full of prizes like games, toys, stuffed animals, jewelry, and other cool items like replica weapons and cosplay items from the medieval period. Pointing directly at the necklace that Ravel was eyeing, the employee placed it in a black and gold case and handed it to Issei, who proceeded to give the case to Ravel. The necklace was heart-shaped and had a ruby gem placed into it. The locket and chains were all gold and there were strange markings on it. Magical it seemed. She gave him a look of confusion, but Issei merely nodded at her, signaling that he won the prize for her and not himself. Ravel was blushing graciously as she gingerly took it. Thank you, Issei-sama. Ravel's tone had changed once again. This time, her tone had returned to being normal. Issei looked at his watch and saw that the hands were still glowing green, with one of the hands pointing at Ravel. Partner, I think her personality is changing again. It seems like she's become like that former Valkyrie. Drake sensed the magical change in her and decided to warn his host. Got it, Drake. Issei felt a bit relieved since she was now no longer cold like before. She used to give him the cold shoulder ever since her personality changed. Today, I've had so much fun today. Thank you. This encourages me to work even harder now. Ravel beamed a bright smile at Issei with a charming blush on her cute face. Looking at his watch, which could also tell time, Issei saw that it was 4 p.m. Ravel, how about we get something to eat? Issei suggested as he was sure that she was hungry too. His stomach felt like an empty pit, which demanded for nourishment or hell would be raised. Of course, Issei-sama. Ravel wrapped her arms around Issei's left arm and walked with him to a booth that was selling food. After they finished eating, Ravel pointed at a store that was selling clothes and cosplay armor. Issei-sama, could we go there? Ravel looked at Issei, who nodded excitedly. They walked inside and Ravel took a gander at the huge selection of dresses, robes, and armors for women, while Issei browsed around the men's clothing. Feel free to try on anything you like. The store owner welcomed them in as she pointed out several outfits in the store. Ravel saw a red ballroom dress that looked quite amazing. She proceeded to try it on in the changing rooms and was anxious to see how Issei would react. Issei saw a suit of shining armor and decided to try it on for fun. The two changed into their chosen outfits and came out of the changing rooms to get the other's opinion. When Issei saw her in the red dress, he was astounded by how much more beautiful and mature she looked than before. He always thought she was cute, but now she was utterly beautiful. Issei thought on how hard she worked and how much commitment that she showed him. He thought about how hard-working she was and how intelligent she was. She was also very good at baking, and she may seem arrogant, but she was actually very sweet. Issei realized that when he looked at her now, his heart would speed up like when he was with Riaz and Asia. Could I be falling in love with her? Issei didn't expect seeing this coming. It was understandable to have fallen for the other girls, but he didn't expect to have also fallen for Ravel. Ravel opened the box with the necklace inside of it and put it in Issei's hands. Issei-sama, could you help me put this on? Ravel turned around as Issei nodded, obliging her request. After placing the necklace on her neck and locking the back of it, Ravel turned around and gave him a hesitant look. How do I look now? Even more beautiful than before. Not that you needed the necklace though. Ravel's face lit up red and she made a silent thank you. I think you look very dashing in that armor too, Issei-sama. Suddenly, the necklace made a strange glow, with red light glowing everywhere. What's happening? Ravel was alarmed by the sudden event, but the light of the necklace soon died down and the magic symbols on it disappeared. Partner, something's not right. Get ready because I smell trouble. Drake warned Issei, who put his guard up. Issei looked around and several dozen men, who looked at Ravel, suddenly became entranced by her and dropped whatever it was they were doing and ran at her. Please marry me. Become my lover. You're mine. It's a goddess. Issei and Ravel became flabbergasted by this strange turn of events. Issei proceeded to punch and kick away any guy who dared try to assault her. When Issei was busy fighting away several crazed men, some others grabbed Ravel and were trying to run off with her. Issei noticed this and raced toward them. He didn't want it, but the situation demanded it. Issei summoned the boosted gear and flew after Ravel and her captors. The men who captured her looked like they were about to do nefarious things to her. Ravel's hands were held down and she didn't want to exactly show her phoenix wings either. Dragon Pulse, a voice called out. A red wave of energy blasted into the men who grabbed her, sending them all flying into trees and the ground, knocking all of them out. Seconds later, Issei dashed and jumped next to Ravel. Are you okay? Did they do anything to you? Issei was afraid at what could have happened. Ravel's clothes were all in perfect condition, though her hair was ruffled. When Ravel looked at him, her heart skipped several beats as she saw how heroic Issei looked. Defending her from several crazed men all by himself, Issei looked like the hero from the play that they watched earlier that day. She had been infatuated with tales of heroes in shining armor, and here, Issei was her hero in shining armor. She shook off her dazed love-struck emotions and replied, I'm fine. We should go, Ravel suggested as Issei finished knocking out the last of the crazed men. Yeah, let me do something really quick first. Issei took out his phone and called Azazel. Sensei, there's been an incident by the area where the Winter Medieval Festival is. Can you come and help clean up here? Issei called in the favor where Azazel promised to help take care of cleaning up any fiascos that were caused by the personality ray. This time, Issei would blame it on the necklace that Issei had won. Within minutes, a team of Grigori members had transported to the area and began to wipe memories of recent events to before Ravel's necklace activated. Damage was fixed and bruises were healed after little time passed. Even Azazel showed up for this. Hey, you two, what happened here? He was amused at what happened and wanted to know more about what caused the whole situation. Well, this necklace just started to glow red and everyone who looked at it attacked me. Ravel showed the necklace to Azazel, who looked at it closely. Oh, this thing. This necklace has an entrancement spell on it. Whoever looks at it when it goes off becomes entranced by whoever wears it and they turn into love-struck idiots. It only works once though. This was usually used as a revenge thing, but they all got destroyed. The Helen and Troy incident happened because of this thing. Azazel made a hearty laugh as Issei and Ravel made exasperated sighs. Well, it's powerless now and the spell is gone, so it's just normal jewelry now. Azazel put the necklace back into Ravel's hands as he and the other Grigori members left. With a deep breath, Issei decided that the pair should go home. It's getting late. Ravel, let's go home before it gets too dark. Ravel and Issei agreed and changed back into normal clothes and proceeded to go to the train station and head back. As the two walked home, Issei decided to tackle a matter that had been badgering him for a long time. Hey, Ravel, I wanted to talk about something. Issei's tone was serious, making Ravel feel a bit on edge and even anxious. What is it, Issei-sama? About you being my manager. Yes, I don't want you to be my temporary manager anymore. Ravel felt her world shatter as her ambition began to cave in. What? Why? She cried out as Issei turned around with a warm and kind look. Ravel looked panicked and even heartbroken. Her desire to be with Issei and her ambition to be with him. It was all falling apart. What I meant to say was this. I want you to be my permanent manager. Ravel's ambition immediately repaired itself and she felt a strong blush grow on her face as her heart began to race like lightning. When I become a high-class devil, will you become a part of my peerage? As a tactician. Issei was a bit hesitant because it wasn't like he had much to offer, but he absolutely had to ask. This whole fiasco with the personality ray made him want to further his relationships with the women in his life. Ravel smiled a truly joyous look and had her hand over her heart in an effort to calm it. She leaped forward and placed a strong passionate kiss on Issei's lips. Ravel's agreement and dedication to Issei was all conveyed in this one kiss. Yes, Issei-sama, I'll be your manager forever if you want me. Her voice was low and loving. Her gaze was warm and her emotions were all positive. Ravel couldn't feel much happier. Issei knew that this sounded much more than it meant and he didn't mind. He wanted to be a good harem king, not a negligent one. Ravel and Issei parted and Ravel immediately wrapped her arms around Issei's arm and walked happily with him home. Being a harem king. My old impression of it was so naive. I used to just think of it as being a guy who had a bunch of busty beauties around me, all of them loving me and satisfying my desires. Now, I want to be a loving harem king. I want to love them and for them to love me. I want to protect them and live happily with them. I'll become stronger ... so that I can make this new dream come true. Issei swore an oath to himself with powerful determination. Of course, partner, I'll also be with you every step of the way. Dreg promised Issei as he made his support known. Issei thanked Dreg. Now, he was eager to further his other relationships. Next, he would try to get even closer to Roswace and he looked forward to it. Issei was having quite a pleasant dream. It was a few things short of heaven. Issei knew because he went there before. It started out with him in his bed in his room inside the Hayaudu mansion. It seemed as if he was sleeping within his dream, except he awoke inside of his dream to a very beautiful sight. He sat up in his bed and was surprised to see Roswace. The best thing was, in Issei's opinion, was that she was nude. It wasn't a rare sight for Issei, but it was still a sight to behold. Ah, the beautiful body of a former Valkyrie, a truly beautiful sight to behold. Issei was drooling a little as he saved her unclothed appearance into his neural hard drive with a new image of her in a different pose. Roswace was sleeping sideways, making her chest pressed together. Her curvaceous figure was outlined by the blanket draped over her lower half, and it was indeed an arousing sight. Roswace stirred and soon awoke as she sat up, yawned and stretched her arms into the air. This action completely exposed her voluptuous chest, and was yet another pleasantry for Issei. Roswace smiled lovingly at Issei. Her face was red with a faint blush and her tone was a bit shy but also satisfied, or rather, she sounded content. "Good morning, Issei." Roswace moved forward and gave Issei a nice long kiss on the lips. It was warm and soft as the two felt each other's lips and tongues collide. The kiss turned lustful, with the warm, passionate kiss becoming much more than a long peck. Finally, the two parted lips, with a thin trail of saliva connecting between the both of them. Last night ... was absolutely wonderful. Roswace's bashful face turned bright red as it seemed like the two had spent a very intimate night together. Issei felt as if he had hit a milestone. He smiled and was about to sweep in for another kiss until he felt a strange sensation. The dream turned to white and he opened his eyes to see the ceiling of the canopy for his bed. He sat up and found that Roswace, Akino, Rias, and the other girls in his harem were asleep on his bed. All of them were in sleepwear and the sight was actually quite jovial in a strange sense. Issei looked to his left and Roswace laying close to him. Her sleeping face was absolutely peaceful and he couldn't help but feel his heart speed up a little when he looked at her tranquil expression. "You okay, partner?" Drake questioned him mentally. "Yeah, I'm fine, Drake," Issei replied mentally, though he sounded a bit out of it. Drake knew exactly what Issei was going through. He had seen his host go through this far too often. A harem was unavoidable for his hosts. "Partner, if you need a talk, I'm right here." Drake spoke his last piece before leaving Issei to his own privacy. Issei was stuck considering about what to do at this point. He had completely and undoubtedly captured the hearts of Asia, Kaneko, Zenobia, Irina, and Ravel at this point. It was clearly established that the 5 girls, plus Rias, were going to be with him from now on. He was very sure that Roswace and Akino clearly had feelings for him and their new sides had solidified this belief. Still, he needed to make sure if they were willing to be in his harem. He was a bit more confident now and he still aimed to be a harem king, but he would be a more loving one. He was going to be a man who protected the women that he loved. He decided that he'd choose to go to Roswace first. She was Derrider right now, so she was probably bound to be more honest and less deceptive, unlike how a Yander would be. He decided that he'd go spend time with Akino last. Best to leave the possible worst for last. He had dressed himself and brushed his teeth and hair and went downstairs. He smelled sweet scents and fragrances and continued down the stairs with expectant vigor. He sat at the dining room table and found that food was already laid out, with the other girls having gotten up and fixing their appearances after noticing Issei's absence. Plates of stacked waffles, Danish, crepes, and pancakes were placed along the center of the table in an elegant fashion. Seating himself at one side of the table, he found that Akino had scooted next to him in a rather rapid fashion. "Why, Akino-san, how did you?" Issei was stunned because she had been sitting on the other side of the table between Irina and Zenobia, but now she was next to him within 3 seconds. Yufufufufu. No need to sweat the small stuff. Akino's aura was a bit unsettling, but Issei paid no mind. He took his seat and as he placed himself on the cushion of his chair, Roswace walked out from the kitchen area. She was wearing a simple white t-shirt that showed her desirable torso and a dark blue skirt that reached her knees. Her hair was tied into a ponytail with the usual ribbon that she used for her hair. Wow, that's actually a nice new look for her. Issei was at first stunned and then entranced by her. The smallest change in hairstyle for Roswace made Issei's heart go on a race again. Roswace noticed his gaze and beamed a smile at him. Issei's face grew a little hotter as he paused. He snapped himself out of his daze and turned to the food. "I wanted to try and make something different today, so I hope you all are satisfied with this." Roswace felt hopeful that her food would taste good. The dishes were of Danish, Scandinavian, and Norwegian food. Everyone took a portion of food from each serving plate and tried each one. A sense of delight and satisfaction lit up in their minds as they savored breakfast. With breakfast out of the way, it was supposed to be a normal Saturday morning. However, that wasn't the case. The volley team, which had been incorporated into DXD, had shown up. Apparently, they were taking a break for a little while. For the past couple of weeks, Volley would show up randomly and watch adult videos with Issei. Azazel had told Volley that if he tried to copy Issei, Volley might unlock a new power. A power that would be received through perverted means. Seeing as how Odin had taken in Volley as his adoptive son, Odin wasted no time in teasing Volley about his fetishes. A couple of days ago, the two showed up for a friendly visit so that Odin could formally introduce and announce Volley as his adopted son. Well, Sekiryute, it has been a while. Odin had announced his arrival a few hours before teleporting to the Hayato residence. "Ah, it's good to see you again, Odin-sama." Issei decided that he should be more formal with Odin, since he wasn't just any old perverted geezer. "It's good to know that you've gained some respect for me. Well, I thought it would be good manners to take my new son around and formally introduce him and make certain things clear." You all already know this, so words aren't really needed. Still, I think Volley needs to learn how to relax and learn that there's more to life than fighting. I'm hoping that you can teach him that. Azazel boy has done much to foster his strength but didn't effectively deal with his battle mania. I'll leave Volley here for the day so that he can unwind. I've already restricted him from running away, but feel free to punch my son if he gets out of hand. Now then, I'll leave you two here. Oh, the Volley team is also here, so do get along better from now on. The DXD team will depend on the ties of you youngsters. I'll see you later. Chichirute, Ketsuruyuku. Odin made a hearty chuckle as he left. Volley looked a bit uncomfortable, but that was a given. The boy didn't have a very bright childhood. His mother was dead from an early age, and his father bullied him out of his home due to his meddlesome and evil grandfather, Rizum Lucifer. Not to mention, Odin said Volley seemed to have a butt fetish, a direct opposition to Issei's fetish. Issei felt a little pity for his past and decided that he should indeed try to help him out. Deep down, Volley wasn't really such a bad person. He was just obsessed with fighting strong people. Hi to Issei, I've paid some attention to those adult videos that you lent me, but I've found no powers increasing in me. Volley stated bluntly. The matter of perversion was completely lost on him. I knew it. I don't know what Azazel-sensei was thinking, but having him watch adult DVDs isn't something that would necessarily give him a strength boost. Issei breathed an exasperated sigh. Where were you looking? Issei decided that he'd try to help him along in awakening his worldly desires. I paid attention to the hip and under, around the buttock area. Volley's statement was blunt and monotone, a clear sign of disinterest. Gotta think of something else. I don't know why Sensei and Odin are pushing me to help this guy out. Issei was going through ideas of what to go over in his head. He couldn't go into the topic of battle. Volley would just get caught up in it and start thinking about fighting again. Issei spent an hour trying to get Volley to think deeply about perverted things, a feat that was impossible for Volley since he wasn't interested in such things. Issei decided to drop the subject. He needed to move on to other things. The next topic, video games. The money he was getting from his Oppai Dragon funds and some of his contracts were ridiculous. He would be swimming in yen, but Grafia made sure to only give him a sufficient amount of money that wouldn't corrupt him. With his newfound wealth, he had bought several new game consoles, and he made sure to use all of them to try and convince Volley that there was more to life than battle. He spent a few hours playing a long list of video games with him, and Volley actually seemed to be interested in RPGs. Leveling up and gaining new and stronger equipment flipped a switch in him. Moving on to manga and novels, Volley wasn't too interested. Sports was a good alternative though. It was active and it caught Volley's attention. They played basketball, and Volley seemed to be able to dunk with a 85% chance of it going in. Over time, Issei noticed that Volley would smile a little more as he became more used to different forms of entertainment. He noticed that the other members of the Volley team were actually beginning to get along with Ryu's peerage too. Given their history, Kaneko and Kuroka were actually spending time together. Of course, Kuroka and Lefei were living at the residence, but they weren't too active in the house. The two sisters would share meals and even play together, though they would play games in Issei's room since he was console central. Arthur was chatting with Yudo and Zenobia. The topic was about swordplay and swords themselves. The sword was what the three shared in common, and it was a great focal point in strengthening their ties. Biku's comedic and carefree attitude mixed well with Arena's bright and friendly personality. Laughs and jokes were exchanged, and it was obvious that in Team DXD, the two would be great help in diffusing tension. Lefei was happy to reunite with the Volley team, and she would join conversations with her brother and Biku since it had been a little while since they last saw each other. Say, Volley, have you ever had a large group of women romantically interested in you before? Issei decided to go back to the subject of romance and finding a family to settle down with. Love was important for life. Everyone needed it at some point. When I was at Grigori, I did have a number of fallen angel females follow me around. Volley sounded a bit pained, even hesitant when he spoke about this. Did they vary in personality? Yes, very. Volley was wondering where Issei was going with this, but followed his lead. Have you ever heard of the Dara types? Volley paused before answering. Yes, Azazel had introduced the matter to him. He understood that the Dara types were people of differing personalities and that they shared in common the focus of love and affection. It was a popular trend in anime. What types did you deal with? Issei pressed on with the matter. Tsundere girls and Dara girls, mostly. Volley was being passive until the next part came. What about Yandere's? Issei eyed the basketball that Volley was dribbling as the two had continued playing. Volley froze as horrific memories returned to him. Flashbacks of hollow and lifeless eyes appeared in his mind as women of varying looks and beauty would try to claim him for themselves through psychotic and murderous means. Gah, Volley wheezed out. No. Issei snatched the ball from Volley as he brought it to the hoop and dunked it, winning him 5 wins out of 10. Volley stood frozen as horrors from his past returned. Volley had never been in a relationship before, but stories from Azazel and his own experiences would just give him chills. This was a rare sight to see though, a scared and frozen Volley. This completely contracted with the calm and collected aura that he usually had. Want to talk about it? Issei had come to the conclusion that by getting things off his chest, Volley might loosen up and enjoy life a bit more. Issei walked over to a bench and patted the seat next to him. Volley sat down and began conversing about his terrible encounter in the past. How scary was it? Terrifying beyond reality. I was around 14 years of age. Back when I was in Grigori, there was this fallen angel girl. She was about my age in fallen angel years. She had been stalking me ever since I was taken in by Azazel. Apparently, she believed we were soulmates the moment she looked me in the eyes. She was convinced that we were supposed to be together, and thus, she resolved to stalk me and try to obtain my affections. For years, she stalked me and threatened every girl that tried to get close to me. Eventually, I caught her trail and confronted her. What came next was terrifying. She had attacked and severely wounded several women who tried to get closer to me. When I expressed disinterest, she immediately erupted. We were in her room at the time, and I saw that her room was covered in photos of me at different times and places. She even took things that I touched and used. She had stolen a pair of clothes from me, picked up a strand of my hair, and even took a piece of food that I didn't finish. Eventually, she attacked me and tied me down to a bed. At the time, I was tired from training and from using Juggernaut Drive. She subdued me with unnatural power and then told me about things she did for me. Vali spoke those last few words with a shudder. Issei was seriously wondering if Akino had done those kinds of things too. He had to pay her room a visit later. She had beat up people who badmouthed me and even proceeded to badly wound them. She snuck 50 love letters to me daily, and she even cooked all of my food without me knowing. Eventually, I escaped and reported the situation to Azazel. He managed to sort out the situation. Still, those lifeless and hollow eyes of a Yandir. Truly scary indeed. The emptiness, obsession, dependence, and horror. It took a while to shake it off. How weak I was back then. I never knew that Yandirs were so capable of amazing feats from their obsession. I even had to fight desperately for my chastity. Vali breathed a long sigh as he recounted his traumatizing past. Issei sympathized with him. At the current moment, he had a girl who would go back and forth from being Dara and Yandir. Eventually, dinner came that night. After a hearty meal, Odin had arrived. It was like watching a father pick up his son and friends from some place. Thanks for today. It was fun. I think I've found some things that are a bit more interesting than I originally thought, Vali admitted as he smiled back at everyone in the Hayaudu mansion. When Roswace saw Odin, however, she went cold. Odin-sama, what brings you here? Roswace glared at him, sending chills up the old man's spine. Her tone remained polite, but her expression was anything but that. "You just here to pick up my son and his friends," Odin stated nervously. An intense and angry aura erupted around Roswace as Odin quickly left with Vali, Biku, and Arthur. When Odin left, Roswace's aura calmed down and she went back to being Daradir. Yufufufu. Looks like Roswace has quite a scary side. Akino teased lightly as Roswace merely huffed away. Issei had decided to take a bath later that evening in order to wash off the sweat that he had accumulated from the day. While showering, he heard the door open to reveal Roswace, draped in nothing but a towel with her hair in a bun. Issei was a bit surprised by this sudden action in all honesty. "Issei, let me wash your back." Roswace sweetly sat behind him as Issei silently complied. She grabbed the towel with soap and proceeded to scrub his bare back. The feeling was pleasant and relaxing, according to Issei. "All done," Roswace proclaimed as she washed Issei off. With cleaning himself being over, Issei walked over to the hot spring in the room and sank slowly into it. He knew that Roswace was watching him, so he thankfully put on a towel to cover Issei Jr. However, Roswace, who was blushing crimson red, was still washing herself off, so she couldn't see him enter the spring anyways. He should have been used to this by now, but Issei couldn't help but feel a little timid. It was probably because of being in the same room with a well-endowed silver-haired beauty. When Roswace entered the water, she deliberately got in right next to him. Issei felt her smooth white skin brush against him, sending a slight tingle through him. "Issei, is the water to your liking? If it isn't, I can have it changed," Roswace tenderly asked him as she pushed up against him. "If Riz's are firm, Akino's are soft, then Roswace's are bouncy." Issei shamelessly gave his mental critique of Roswace's S. "Is something the matter, Issei?" Roswace's face inched closer, bringing their lips mere inches apart. "Are you feeling alert? Do you feel dizzy? Your face is red." Roswace kindly put her hand on his forehead to see if his temperature was abnormal for the situation. "My face is red for a different reason." Issei could not only see her S, but he could see below her waist too. The last time he got this conscious in a bath was with Rias. "I'm fine, Rose." Issei assured her that he was feeling fine. Roswace looked relieved and proceeded to put her head on Issei's shoulder. "I'm glad. I love you, Issei. Even if you love the other girls, I'll love you unconditionally," Roswace proudly proclaimed to him. Issei looked at his wrist where his watch was. The watch was a gift from Azazel. It could exactly tell if someone around him was behaving under the effects of the personality ray. The watch was not glowing at all. This meant only one thing. Roswace is being truthful. She's saying it of her own free will. Issei was surprised by this revelation. Roswace was in love with him. Roswace contently rested herself on him, creating a silent atmosphere. Issei came to the conclusion that he also loved her. For the past few days, Roswace cooked for him and helped him whatever endeavor that he did. Even when he went out to fulfill a contract, she would stay up till he came home and would make sure that he had a warm meal and relaxing bath. It was touching, really. There was no point in withholding the statement any longer. "Rose, I love you too," Issei calmly replied to her. Roswace's eyes shot open as she looked at him with a surprised look. Do you mean that? Roswace looked at him in disbelief. It was a gamble on her part. She knew that Issei had eyes for Riaz and he was also a perverted teen, so it was hard to tell if there was love or lust. Issei looked at her with a determined and honest expression. I'm just as serious as when I declared my love for Riaz. Issei confirmed the truth behind his words. Happy tears were brought to Roswace's eyes as she lunged forward and brought Issei into a tender and strong embrace. The pair brought their faces together and intertwined their lips. It was passionate, tender, and was untouched by lust. Her lips are so soft and warm. This feeling, I like it. I've kissed with Riaz so many times already, and yet, it feels different every time I do it with Akino and the other girls. Am I really okay with leaving the other girls hanging? Issei began to question himself about dating. Was he content with just dating Riaz and leaving the other girls unrequited? He couldn't take too long to come to a decision. It wouldn't be fair. He had to think things over carefully. He loved all of the girls in his harem, but he didn't want to deprive them of attention either. Deciding to exit the bath before things got hectic, Issei parted ways with Roswace and went to his room to rest for tomorrow. The next morning, at breakfast, Issei was alone with Roswace. The others had things to do, so they were all out of the house. Deciding to cook breakfast for once, Issei decided that he'd make breakfast. The menu was fried smoked sausage, buttered toast, waffles, and soup. Issei, Roswace held up a piece of sausage to his mouth. Issei gladly obliged as he opened wide. The whole time, the two were being lovey-dovey as if they were a newlywed couple. It seemed as if Roswace had taken the lead in romance in the harem, second to Riaz, of course. When breakfast was done, Issei decided that he'd take Roswace out shopping. Roswace was obsessed with 100-yen shops and other low-priced places. Issei decided that he'd take her to expensive places so that she could enjoy luxury for once. Apparently, her hometown didn't have much either. Rose, do you mind going out with me today? There's some stuff I want to do, but I was wondering if you wanted to go out with me too. Issei masked his intentions with a convincing lie. He also played on Roswace's dare side. Of course, just let me go change first. I'll be back soon. Roswace ran upstairs and came back down a few minutes later in a white coat, black pants, and white boots. They were all designer clothes too. It was obvious that Roswace felt quite strongly about this. It was basically a date after all. The two had taken a train from the station and were currently shopping at a brand store. He decided to go to the men's section and pick a few clothes so that Roswace wouldn't suspect that he was up to something. He grabbed a few shirts and pants and walked over to Roswace, who was looking around at a couple of clothes. She had already tried on a few outfits and Issei was stunned at how pretty she looked. She had tried on a blue shirt with a light-colored jacket and a black skirt. The skirt reached mid-thigh. She also tried an outfit where she was in a red shirt and white skirt. I wonder if Issei will like this. The whole time, Roswace asked herself this while trying on outfits. She walked out to a mirror and was surprised to see Issei standing next to one. Roswace was a bit bashful since Issei caught her looking a bit more girly than usual. You look really nice. Issei beamed a smile that made Roswace shake with joy. She was currently wearing a silver loose shoulder shirt and a black skirt with silver shoes. Thank you. Roswace stammered as she gazed into the mirror next to Issei. That one comment made Roswace's heart skip a beat and caused her face to redden into a blush. She checked herself and she did think that she looked okay, contrary to Issei, who thought that she was gorgeous. Opting to take the 3 previous outfits, the two headed up to the register to pay, with Issei being first. After scanning all of his items, Issei handed the cashier his debit card. Use this to pay for her items and mines, please. Issei slickly gestured for Roswace to scan her items. Roswace was a bit surprised that Issei would do that. She was going to argue until Issei cut her off. Don't worry about it. You've done a lot for the past few days, so this isn't really much. Go ahead, scan your stuff. Issei kindly moved aside for her. With payment done and clothes bought, the pair ventured off to other things. Issei was a bit glad this time. He and Roswace could go on a date and not get interrupted, unlike the last time. Last time, Euclid decided to come crash the atmosphere with his obsessive tendencies toward his sister, Graphia Lucifuge. The pair had gone to the aquarium that was close by. They saw numerous types of fish that were separated into different tanks, depending on whether the marine life was a predator or not. They saw octopi, great white sharks, flounders, clownfish, and even electric eels. Roswace would point at several fish and tell Issei to look at them when she caught sight of an obscene fish. The whole time, Issei was happy to see her enjoy herself. When he looked at her joyful smile and carefree movement, he rejoiced. He felt the same way every time he saw any of the other girls that he liked smile. Still, there was an issue left. The whole time, Roswace would cling to him. While they were at the aquarium, Roswace stayed around him the whole time and would keep her arm entangled around his. He didn't mind at first, but he felt like she was dissolving the lines of privacy and personal space. She wouldn't stay more than 1 foot away from him and was always in physical contact. The most bothering thing came when she would wait outside of the bathroom for him and even offered to help him wash his hands. Issei had no idea why she was doing that, but he felt like he needed to do something. He could tell whether or not Roswace was progressing towards yandere tendencies. He watched anime and got advice from Azazel about the topic. The clingier a girl gets and the more in love she falls, the closer she'll get to becoming obsessive and eventually psychotic. Hunger soon arrived and the pair had gone to a famous street vendor that was apparently a famous chef that cooked for the masses. The vendor had a large tent and cart that was red and white. Multiple containers and pots of food were laid out on kerosene heaters and a large menu was posted at the counter. There were multiple employees who were working in the kitchen area of the tent. There were a bunch of different foods like mitarashi dango, sandwiches, shawarma, and pies. After ordering their food, the two ventured to a park bench and ate their food there. In a nutshell, the date was clingy but sweet. Rosway stuck to Issei the whole time and she didn't even bother to leave his side as time went on. The two were eating peacefully and were staring at the sunset. The yellow gold sun was beginning to go down and stars and moons were beginning to materialize into the sky. It was a beautiful sight. Rosway turned to look at Issei and noticed a stain of food on his lips. She took a napkin and gently wiped it. She noticed a stray strand of hair on Issei's face and brushed it aside. She even began to pat down some of the wrinkles in Issei's clothes. For the past few days, she had done this routine. Slowly, she felt that a strange new impulse was taking hold of her. She wanted Issei for herself. She said she was willing to share him with the other girls, but she now felt like rescinding on that. Issei noticed the look on her face and realized that something was wrong. She looked conflicted and even sinister. "I want to be the only one," Roswace muttered. Issei looked at her and then his watch. His watch was blaring a red light and the hands were glowing green, with on hand pointing at Roswace. Even the band turned red. One of the new features for the watch was that it would start blinking whenever a girl's personality started changing. It was color-coded too. Red, Yandir; blue, Kudir; green, Sundir; yellow, Daradir. Shit, Issei cursed in his mind. "Partner, you have to stop her now before it's too late," Drag warned Issei quickly. "If I can't have Issei as my husband, I'd rather die," Roswace declared darkly. These dark thoughts were erupting out of nowhere in her mind. "Rossweisse, stop it," Issei yelled loudly, causing her to snap out of her dark trance, scaring her even. In Issei's eyes, he saw anger and desperation. This made her tear up a little as her fragile mind shook a bit from his sudden outburst. "Why?" she stuttered. "Don't you dare talk about dying again. We've gone through this before. The last time you talked about death, I told you that I'd protect you. If you try to hurt yourself, I'll protect you from hurting yourself." Issei repeated his promise to her once more, causing Roswace to realize the nature of what she had just said. "Even if other people insult you, I'll be here to counter them. Even if you look down on yourself and deem yourself unworthy of life, I'll be a reason to help you value yourself. Never talk about killing yourself and don't you dare belittle your life again." Issei had recalled back to the times where he nearly lost Asia permanently twice. The first time when Rainier tore her sacred gear away from her and when Shalba nearly killed her. He also thought back to the times when Riaz was gravely wounded by Regulus during the match with Sarayorg. He also remembered the severe losses in that match and the anger he felt at watching all of them fall in front of him. He didn't want to hear any more about his friends and loved ones dying. Roswace realized the mistake she made by talking about dying again and began to tear up. She was touched by Issei's outburst and declaration. She never dated before, so she had never felt romantic love before Issei. I'm sorry, Issei. I don't know what's happening to me," Roswace stammered as she began to sob. She was confused and disoriented. Just where did those suicidal thoughts come from? Issei moved over to her and brought her into a tight and warm hug, bringing ease to Roswace as her sobs began to die down over time. "I'm sorry for yelling at you. I didn't mean to be so loud. Still, never talk about killing yourself again. You and everyone at home and all of our friends are precious to me. I don't want you all to get hurt and I want to love and protect you and the other girls." Issei patted and rubbed her back to calm down Roswace's cries. "I know, Issei-kun. I promise. I'll never talk about killing myself again." Roswace wrapped her arms around Issei as if he were her lifeline. The two parted a little and Issei looked her right in the eyes. He saw disorientation and confusion, but she also saw love and light. He saw the tears in her eyes and wiped them away softly from her cheeks. Roswace couldn't restrain herself any longer. She rushed forward and crashed her lips against Issei's softly. Tender passion, relief, and love were transmitted into the kiss. Unlike the other kisses, this one was warmer and much stronger in emotion. Time felt like it stood still, with eternity taking the place of passing time. Eventually, the two parted lips and stared lovingly into each other's eyes. Smiles were exchanged and even small laughs were expressed, with no words necessary, for they weren't enough to describe the happiness and relief in the air. There was relief for Issei, who was glad that Roswace didn't descend into destruction, and there was happiness for Roswace, who had her feelings completely reciprocated, even if the love she received was shared. The two silently walked home, with Roswace's head resting on Issei's shoulder the whole way. When the two arrived home, it was obvious that Issei had advanced the relationship between him and Roswace. The others, who had already arrived home, were surprised by what they saw. More competition. The other girls sighed but accepted the event. However, it seemed like there was a certain person who wasn't happy with the sudden occurrence. Akino stared blankly at Issei, who was smiling brightly as he laughed jovially. "He's getting even farther away from me. No. I can't let this continue." Akino began to panic mentally as she felt a powerful pain in her heart. Things weren't going to be quiet much longer. That is, it wasn't going to be silent for Issei and Akino, who was at a breaking point. The school week had started again and Issei had forced himself to school, despite his desire to cling to his bed in comfort with his many beautiful lovers. He trudged into the school and slowly made his way to his classroom. Throughout his walk, he could feel a presence from a distance. It was strong and intimidating, and yet it felt familiar. He turned around and looked everywhere behind him. He scanned the hallway, doors, corridors, and the windows and saw nothing. A bad sign. He walked into his classroom but suddenly and comically shot his head behind him again. This time, he saw some black hair disappearing through a corner. That looks familiar. Issei paused as he pondered through the list of people that he knew that had black hair. Entering his classroom and sitting through class, Issei was too distracted to even pay attention to the teacher's lecture. Somehow, the teacher didn't notice his disinterest, however. Well, there's Sariorg-san, Cao, Off-Ice, Serafal-san, Kuroka, Barakil, and Akino-san. Issei hesitated and paused at the last part since he really didn't want to say it, even though he knew that Akino was definitely the one he saw in the hallway. That last episode was too close. Issei exhaled as he thought about how close Roswace got to becoming a yandere. That was too close for comfort. He remembered how her eyes were slowly going cold and lifeless with her voice turning monotone. A staple for yanderes, really. However, he had dealt with that problem and was now close to the end of the personality ray fiasco. Akino and Riaz were the only ones left. Issei's watch also indicated that the personality ray's effects were weakening with the other girls, who were slowly returning to normal after such a lengthy period. Still, Akino and Riaz were still the only ones who were exhibiting the strongest personality changes. Akino was becoming much more possessive of Issei and didn't even like it when he talked about other girls too much. Riaz was still as shy as ever. She wouldn't sleep nude with him anymore and slept with him less often. She was still caring and doting, but she wasn't willing to get sexual with him. Even suggesting sexual intercourse made her head steam and her face went red like her hair. However, the biggest problem now was Akino. She cooked for him, bathed with him, and even slept with him almost 24/7 for the past few days. She wouldn't drop her gaze on him and would always try to appease him however she could. She tried to wear lacy lingerie to arouse his pervert nature, to much success, and would tease him through the night. However, most of the time, he avoided her. He was nervous, after all. He didn't want her yandere side to fully manifest and bring harm to herself and the others around her. Issei noticed that there were times where she simply glared at other girls that expressed romantic interest in him. Even Kiyome got the stink eye from Akino. Lately, he noticed that Akino was following him. He even went inside her room and searched one of her secret drawers. How he found one, he didn't know. Inside, he saw a litter of photos of him. They were of him naked, showering, eating, walking, smiling, laughing, and even some of his childhood photos were included. The other day, Issei had a terrifying incident with her. Flashback. It was around 2 days ago that an incident with Akino happened. He was playing video games in his room and he had just gotten his hands on a video game that he had wanted for a while. It was a collector's edition too. It was called Super Smashing Warriors. It was like a crossover fighting game for characters of different video games. Some new character called Striding Storm got included. The guy wielded a giant sword and was really famous in the gaming industry. Fans went nuts when he came out as DLC. Issei had been playing for 30 minutes until his door creaked open. It was opened slowly and the opening was very quiet if not silent. From out the hallway, Akino walked in slowly with a tray of sandwiches and cups of tea. She was smiling brightly and was giggling happily as she set the tray down next to Issei. Issei, I brought some food for you to eat. Akino sat down as she took a look at what Issei was playing. This looks fun. Can I play? Akino looked at Issei as she inched closer to him. Issei nodded excitedly as Akino picked up a controller. I can never get any of the other girls to play with me. Well, except for Off-Ice, Issei remarked jovially while Akino's eyebrow twitched. I asked all of the other girls but they never want to play against me in this game. It makes me sad sometimes. Issei rubbed the back of his head until he felt a presence close to him. Suddenly, Asia peeked in from the doorway with her head sticking out. Issei-san is too competitive in that game. He's so mean and stupid. He never gives anyone a chance. He even used when I won too many times. He even ogled Rosway-sensei and Riaz Wanachin when they were playing with him. The whole time, he was being a slack-jawed perv. Asia shouted as she huffed and left. Issei knew danger was coming and he was right. He looked to his right and saw Akino staring at him with yandere eyes. You kept on mentioning other girls the whole time we played instead of saying anything about me. You even used on Asia's ass to cheat and you even stared at Roswace's and Riaz's chests. Not even once have you paid attention to me. Tell me, Issei, are you getting it on with the other girls? Are you having intercourse with them? Are you? Tell me. Answer me. Why? What have you been doing? Tell me the truth. If you don't, I'll hurt you. The last comment scared Issei senseless, so he gave an honest answer. Akino's lightning aura didn't fail to rush him either. No, of course not, Issei shouted, snapping Akino out of her yandere trance. Sensing his honesty, Akino calmed down and Issei was allowed to breathe in relief again. I see. I guess you're right. I know that Issei-kun is still a patient person. Akino returned to playing video games with Issei, though the tense atmosphere hadn't disappeared much. Flashback end. Issei knew that he had to deal with the matter. He needed to get Akino's jealousy levels to decrease or even disappear. But how? What was difficult was that Issei wasn't sure how to approach the matter. He didn't want to dig the hole any deeper for himself by chaining himself to her if he misused words, but he couldn't spend too much time thinking or things might worsen. He recalled the incident when Akino was basically tasing the lady that tried to seduce Issei. It wasn't exactly pleasant, and Issei feared that one of these days, Akino might do worse. He had to take action. If the matter came to force, then so be it, but Issei wanted to make sure that it didn't come to that. Partner, I might have a plan. One of my previous hosts had this problem before. He was able to deal with it by finding the original source for the Yandere tendencies. In that case, the so-called Yandere was mentally fragile and was afraid of losing my host. In response, my host swore eternal loyalty and love to her. She may have been a part of a harem, but she was able to cope, and over time, her Yandere tendencies disappeared completely. This situation is a bit brighter. The Akino girl is only temporarily a Yandere. If you can find the source of her mental distress, you can end the problem before it escalates. Drake's wise counsel helped give Issei an idea. It was a gamble, but it was something to work with. And so, Issei set out to do just that. He needed a plan. A really good plan. Considering Yandere tendencies, Akino was likely to be spying on his moves whenever her Yandere side became active. Issei gazed down at his watch and saw that it wasn't activating. He made sure to especially take good care of his watch. He couldn't risk losing or breaking it, since it was his only way of knowing when a girl was acting under the personality raise effects. Next, he had to think of how to appeal to Akino so that it would bring ease and calmness to her mind. He decided that S&M was far too insane for him to engage in. He was trying to survive and cure the situation, not enhance the threat. Her relationship with her father was as strained as it used to be, but their connection wasn't close like it used to be either. Issei wasn't exactly on the most friendly of speaking terms with him either. Meeting with the girl's father was out of the question. He took Asia shopping and arcade gaming. Kaneko went to the amusement park. Zenobia went to the bookstore. Irina didn't really go anywhere with him. Ravel went to the winter festival with him. Lastly, Rosswace went shopping with him, with a small walk in the park. Issei wanted to make sure that the date he would take each girl on was one to remember. What to do? Issei pondered to himself for a long time. What was the best way to get Akino in a good mood? He decided that he would try and do something more romantic. What he had planned was a secret. Step 1. Get her in an approachable situation. Akino isn't exactly the type to spy on me at every waking moment when at home. My video cameras and magical monitors have proven that. Step 2. Approach the problem with different topics. Step 3. Directly ask about the issue. Step 4. Confess my feelings. Issei turned around a corner and into the kitchen, where the personage of his worries manifested. Akino smiled brightly at Issei as she finished cooking miso soup. She hummed happily as she stirred the contents of the pot on the stove. Little did Issei know, things were not going to go how he planned it. When breakfast was done cooking, Akino and Issei had set the table and laid out bowls, plates, and chopsticks. The whole time, Akino was giggling and blushing. Issei assumed it was because she was spending time alone with him. When everyone gathered at the dining room table, Akino made sure to sit with Issei. Issei-san, can I sit next to Asia's tsundere tone was cut off by Akino. She glared at Asia with a literal electric and shocking aura. Scared off, Asia didn't say another thing and chose to sit next to Ria's, hoping for protection. Here, Issei. Akino held up a cut piece of pork cutlet and held it in front of Issei's mouth. Issei graciously ate the piece of meat and savored its delicious taste. How is it? Akino nervously, but sweetly, questioned her performance. She hoped that Issei liked her own special recipe. She spent a large amount of time making it for him. She wanted to satisfy him and wanted to please him. It's awesome. I can't get enough of this, Issei proudly declared as Akino laughed with sheer relieved delight. If Issei was dissatisfied, she had no idea how she would take it. Akino held up another piece and fed it to Issei, who ate it happily. However, a thought popped up in Issei's head. Akino-san, haven't you eaten yet? Akino dismissed the issue calmly. I've already eaten. With breakfast over, Issei decided that he would wait for Akino to be alone in order to ask her out. He wasn't going to do it in front of the other girls, since he knew they'd get jealous. When Akino was washing the dishes alone, Issei approached her. He took a look at his watch and saw that it wasn't activating. It was time to make his move. Akino, let me help you. Issei used a first-name basis to get her in a happy mood, and it worked to great effect. It's fine, Issei-kun. Akino tried not to bother him with her workload, but Issei wouldn't have it. I want to help. You cooked breakfast and practically fed me, so let me help you. Akino couldn't exactly argue with him when he seemed so insistent on helping with the dishes. Halfway through the pile in the sink, Issei sprung his question. Hey, Akino, said woman looked at him with cheerful curiosity. Yes, do you want to go on a date? Issei smoothly asked her with a disarming smile. This question completely caught Akino off guard. He wants to go on a date. Kaya, I'm so lucky and happy. Of course. Akino was shouting inward happily as she started to giddily giggle in reality. Of course, Issei. Akino dived forward and hugged Issei happily as she pressed her very well-gifted bosom onto Issei. This softness, this elasticity, this firmness. I will never get enough of this pleasurable sensation. Issei smiled like a lucky perv, much to Akino's joy. Issei, I'll make you fall for me and then. I'll keep you for myself forever, Akino darkly thought to herself as she planned to put in her own little deviations for the date. Great, we'll meet up at the door then. How about we both wear formal clothes too? Issei took control of the situation as he made sure to be careful not to give Akino an opportunity to let her yander tendencies loose. A half hour later, Issei waited at the door, wearing a nice red shirt with a black formal coat and black pants. He was even wearing a black tie to go with his suit. Steps echoed from the stairs, attracting Issei's attention. He was stunned to see Akino in all her elegant glory. She was wearing a black dress with black high heels. Her hair was tied with a purple ribbon and she wore silver earrings and a diamond-jeweled bracelet. In short, she was shockingly stunning. The private theater they were going to was owned and managed by the BGMI family in the human world. Deciding to do things the human way, Issei called a cab to the front of his home and walked with Akino to the car. He opened the door to the back seat and allowed Akino to enter first. Thank you. Akino briefly thanked him as she elegantly sat in the back. Issei soon followed her in and closed the door. Giving the driver the directions to the theater, the taxi drove off. After a 20-minute drive, the pair arrived to a large theater that had neon red letters saying Red Duke Cinema. The title was enough to hint at the owners of the theater. Opening a door for Akino, Issei took her hand and helped her out of the cab. Paying the driver, the taxi sped off and the pair walked into the theater. Akino was in an ultra-happy mood. She took a look at what was playing and saw that a large mix of human films and devil films were airing. One movie in particular had caught her eye. Striding Love, Akino muttered as she considered suggesting it to Issei. She looked at him and saw that he was looking at her the whole time. What did you want to watch? Issei sweetly asked her with a charming smile. Akino could have sworn that she had seen sparkles around him. I kinda wanted to watch Striding Love. I heard that it was very good and that it was very touching. Akino bashfully whispered out as she realized that Issei was pouring all of his attention on her. This made her so happy. It was enough to make her crackle with lightning again. Issei merely nodded and walked over to the ticket booth and bought tickets for two. Stopping by the snack register, Issei and Akino considered what to order since the movie was about 2 hours long. What about a large popcorn to share? Akino suggested softly. Her eyes were warm and enticing and a small blush was spreading on her face. In truth, Issei was in the mood for the cheesecake bar specialty that the theater was known for. I don't know. Issei wanted to make Akino happy, but at the same time he really loved cheesecake. Akino began to tear up a little as she felt like her charms had failed. This was the yet another time her charms had failed. The one other time was when she tried to sleep with him in order to comfort her aching heart when her estranged father showed up after her first date with Issei. She began to think about how much closer the other girls were getting to Issei. She just could not take it. The thought of Issei going away made her heart ache and her mental stability would crack a little. Issei noticed her sad look and put his arm around her shoulder and gently squeezed it. This gesture grabbed Akino's attention as she looked at him. Issei beamed warmly at her and walked to the register. Not even once did he gaze at his watch as his sense alerted him to her distress. 1 large popcorn, please. Oh, and 1 soda and 1 water, please. Akino completely lost her dreary mood and smiled in relief when Issei cast aside his own wants and chose hers instead. Walking back to her, Issei gestured toward the room that they were supposed to go and watch their movie. Akino cheerfully strode alongside him and walked into the dimly lit room with a large screen. Taking comfortable seats that had a great view of the screen, the pair sat down. Soon, the lights darkened and previews began to air. One particular preview was a bit embarrassing for Issei. Good thing this place is for devils only. I'd die of embarrassment and shame if any human saw this, Issei glumly stated in his mind. Drake wasn't even going to respond. Currently, a preview for an Oppai Dragon movie was playing. Today, once and for all, I will touch Switch Princess's Oppai and claim victory over you, Darkness Fang Knight. You and your evil ways will end. Dragon kick. The Issei lookalike shouted on the screen as his double jumped into the air and kicked the Kiba lookalike in the chest. Shame wasn't enough to describe Issei's embarrassment as he witnessed the movie that was being made based on him. It was great and all, and it was worth it to watch children smile because of him, but it was still something that he wasn't completely used to yet. Akino giggled lightly at his shame and patted him on the shoulder lightly, confirming to him that she thought he looked heroic. What the hell? This embarrassment is all worth it, Issei mentally declared to himself as he held her hand gently. Akino blushed like a red pepper as the small intimate gesture made her lose composure. I'm holding hands with Issei. This can't get better, Akino inwardly shouted as she smiled with sparkles glowing around her. The radiance is so strong. This much light might actually harm me. Issei was forced to close his eyes a little as Akino sprouted a bright aura that lit up the whole room. Thank goodness that the room was privately reserved. The preview then destroyed the mood as the next line for Oppai Dragon the movie was delivered. Warning, warning, suggestive material. Warning, I'm out of strength. Oppai Dragon collapsed as his bruised and broken armor began to disappear. Oppai Dragon. The Ria's lookalike rushed forward and caressed Oppai Dragon warmly. Go ahead, Switch Princess's line made Issei and even Akino do a spit take. The fake Issei moved to his mouth to the fake Ria's chest and a shocking action was delivered. Just kill me already. Issei was ready to drop lifelessly to the ground now. If Ria saw this, she'd die of shame. Soon, the movie began to play, and the two fell silent and simply enjoyed the movie. When the protagonist declared his love for the heroine in the film, Akino couldn't help but wish that Issei would do the same for her. So far, the film was about a hero who was slowly attracting the attention of other women. As the hero slowly forgot about the main heroine, they drifted apart and months went by. Soon, the hero and main heroine met again. Slowly, they rekindled their friendship and love even blossomed, until other women intervened. Akino then felt a pang in her chest as she realized the film's plot was mirroring hers. The other women in Issei's harem were gaining leads and she still hadn't made a real move on him yet. She hadn't yet openly and directly declared her love for him yet. She had to do it, or the other women would steal him away forever. Akino couldn't handle that. Finally, the film ended and the hero and main heroine had ended up not being together. Their love was torn apart by the multiple relationships that the protagonist was having. When Akino saw it, she started to panic a little when she wondered if the same would happen to her and Issei. She was snapped out of her thoughts when Issei kindly took her hand and guided her outside. Akino could only blush and feel giddy as Issei opened the door for them both. What was revealed to her was a surprising sight. Awaiting outside was a white carriage being carted around by a white horse and a black horse. Issei helped Akino onto the carriage and soon entered himself. The ride was nothing short of magnificent. It was quiet and even romantic as Akino held Issei's hand close to her. He held her hand the whole ride and even pointed out certain things to her on the scenic route that they were taking to dinner. They were riding through a park that was lightly covered in snow. There were even some rabbits and squirrels out that Akino thought was cute. The carriage ride soon came to an end and a restaurant had come into sight. It was a fancy first-class, Michelin 3-star restaurant. Akino was amazed that Issei would choose to take her to such a place. It looked like he was trying to outdo himself this time. However, that wasn't Issei's intention. He wanted to try and make all of the girls in his harem happy whenever he took any of them out on a date. He took Asia clothes shopping and arcade gaming to give her a taste of normal life. He went with Kaneko to the amusement park to let her have fun like how she used to with Kuroka. He also took Ravel to a festival so that she could have her dream of being with a shining knight come true. That little detail about her was told to him by Riser. He also took Rosway shopping for whatever she desired since she needed something positive happening for her. Still, he needed to take Zenobia, Irina, and Riaz out on real and proper dates now. It wouldn't be fair and he actually looked forward to doing it. In fact, he wanted to do something with all of the girls in his harem again. Akino happened to like romantic things, so this was something that Issei had planned out to be the most romantic date he had so far. "Shall we go in?" Issei offered his hand to Akino, who took it graciously. They walked into the restaurant and saw that it had a smooth wooden floor, chandelier lights, white stone walls, paneled glass windows, and even balconies. Issei walked over to the counter server and called in on his reservation for one of the balcony tables. A waiter came over to them and guided them to a white-clothed table that was in a roofed balcony that was separated from the inner room by 2 doors. A private room really. Taking their seats and glancing at their menus, Issei looked up at the night and saw the shining full moon glowing in the sky. "It's beautiful tonight," Issei remarked as Akino nodded in agreement. Issei was a bit surprised that Akino's Yander side hadn't actually happened so far. That was a good sign, but he knew better. Something was going to trigger it sooner or later. After ordering food, the pair began to make small talk. "So now that you and Butchu graduated, what's going to happen at home now?" "We'll simply go to university and back. The only difference now is that we'll simply be going to different places during the day." Akino sweetly confirmed that she was going to remain by his side. This brought Issei relief. He just loved seeing Akino and everyone else at home. It brought joy to his heart. He'd never tire of it, that's for sure. When their first course came, Akino was pleased to see a delicious appetizer. Over the course of the meal, Issei continued to make light talk. "Akino, are you going to get into serious rating games with Butchu?" "Of course." Akino's reply was bright and happy. "When you become a high-class devil, will you get a peerage?" "I don't know yet." That particular question made Issei a bit worried. What if Akino left everyone behind when she became independent? He loved her. He really did. He wanted to spend an eternity with her and the others for however long he could. "I see. Well, I wonder how Butchu would feel." Issei absent-mindedly commented on this part. "Butchu might feel a bit sad but also happy when we all become high-class devils." "Probably." Akino was starting to feel a little bothered. "I want Butchu to smile, but I still want to become independent one day." Akino lost her sweet smile a little when she thought about Issei leaving everyone behind, specifically her. "Butchu has given me land already, so I think I'll use that place to live when I leave." Issei felt a little nervous when he thought about the future, but that was unavoidable. Little did he know, Akino's patience was rapidly wearing thin. The constant mention of Riaz was making her heart ache when she knew that Riaz and Issei would probably marry. The fact that Zenobia and Asia were planning on following him had also reached her ears. Irina was no longer tied down either, since angels were allowed to breed and love openly now. Issei talking about leaving wasn't helping either. Finally, she was snapped out of her question when Issei directed a question to her yet again. "Akino?" Issei sounded a little worried when Akino looked at him. "Yes." She felt a little lost when she looked at him, but that was to be expected. "I was wondering if you had talked with your father lately." Akino remembered that she had recently talked with her father a few days ago. He had completely worried over her strange behavior but masked it well. Azazel had filled him in on what happened, and it frightened and worried Barakiel when he found out what happened to Aquino. He even punched Azazel in the gut for leaving his inventions lying around again. This wasn't the first time Azazel's inventions had run amok. Yes, we merely talked about my university plans and his health. There wasn't much going on. Still, it makes me happy to know that he's feeling well. He even got into an accident and spilled paint all over Grigori's headquarters due to a new invention. Aquino made a heartfelt smile, one that she didn't notice that she was making. Issei smiled as he felt relieved. Aquino's formerly estranged relationship with her father was vanishing. She could even smile and laugh when talking about her father and his occasional blunders. I see. That's great then. Over time, the conversation got onto more serious subjects. Issei, there's something I want to talk about. Aquino's tone got a bit tense, raising Issei's senses to high alert. About what? For the past few weeks, you've been going out a lot. You go out for such a long time and you don't ever say anything about it. Can you tell me what you've been doing? Aquino's tone turned urgent and even desperate. Issei decided that he couldn't lie. It'd only make the situation worse. I've been going out on dates with the other girls, Issei confessed. Little did he expect, Aquino actually took it well enough, but even then, that wasn't true. I see. Aquino looked down. Her bangs covered her face, but Issei knew that her eyes were still containing luster and life. Who did you take so far? I took Asia, Kaneko, Zenobia, Ravel, and Roswace. Issei looked up and looked Aquino in the eyes. She looked absolutely sad and sorrowful. The list had finally made her snap. Issei-kun ... took almost all of the other girls, huh? Aquino sounded so sad and downtrodden that it actually hurt Issei's heart to hear her sound so broken. I guess I've lost him. I've really lost Issei-kun. The others took him away. I guess ... this means that I have the least meaning to him. He didn't consider me until now. Until I was last. Riaz is already his girlfriend. Aquino was going off in her own mind. Her eyes slowly turned lifeless and sorrowful. Her eyes turned blank, but her voice was shaky and sad. It was as if she was about to break down into tears. Sorry, Issei-kun. I can't stay anymore. My mother left, then my father, and now you. I can't stay. Aquino got up and ran out of the restaurant. Issei took a good look at her as she ran off and saw tears trailing her path. Dumbstruck and confounded at himself, Issei sat in his seat for a good 5 minutes. He contemplated about his bluntness and naivety. He had to fix this, no matter the cost. Issei now realized where Aquino's yandere tendencies sprouted from. It was from her mental dependency on those close to her, especially the men close to her like her father and himself. Issei paid the bill and tip and ran off after Aquino. Partner, you better hurry back to the house. She ran off and went back. I can sense her there now. Dreg advised Issei, much to his thanks. Thanks, Dreg. Issei dashed down the street to where nobody would see and teleported back home in a matter of seconds. In a flash of light, he saw that the main living room was still in order and everyone was watching TV in the main room, so it was clear that Aquino hadn't harmed anyone yet. Issei ran into the room and made sure to give them a strict message. Everyone, no matter what happens, no matter what you hear, don't come upstairs. Issei declared, mainly to Riaz so that she could control the other girls. Riaz understood what he was trying to do and nodded with a smile. She had saw Aquino come crying home minutes earlier and heard her run to her room. Aquino had been a sobbing and sniffling mess. When Issei came back in a panicked state, she knew that Issei would fix the problem. Issei ran up the stairs and stopped outside of Aquino's room. He could hear sobbing and things crashing in her room. Inside, Aquino was throwing her things around. She was even zapping some objects with lightning. There was a powerful pain and rage in her heart right now. Words weren't even enough to describe it. She threw her belongings around, tore clothes, smashed objects, and generally tried to vent out whatever it was that was hammering away at her heart. Yet, it seemed that no matter what, physical action wasn't doing anything to quell her pain. Aquino let out a long and loud wail of despair. She didn't care if anyone heard her since her room was soundproofed anyway. Aquino sank to her knees and sobbed uncontrollably with her face in her hands. It hurt so much. Why did Issei-kun leave me for last? It feels as if he just left me for last because he didn't want to deal with me. He's been going on dates with all of the other girls and they all come home laughing and smiling. I tried to charm him and he just brushes everything off. He even chose Riaz and even Asia over me. I can't stand seeing him with other women. Every time he's with them, my heart hurts and I just get so enraged. I want to tear them away from him. I want him for myself. I want to be the only woman he loves with all his heart. I want to be his wife. I want to be his one and only lover. I can't take it anymore. 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 Aquino felt her mental stability and strength breaking as she sensed that her heart was doing the same. Every time she thought about Issei and the other girls, she felt something in her break. I can't take it anymore. Aquino screamed out loud as her barrier around her room wore off. Issei, for once in the entire day, took a look at his watch. It was blaring a red light. The clock hands were glowing green and were pointing at the door. The band had also turned dark red. Issei didn't care though. One of the women that he loved was crying her heart out and was destroying her room. That was absolutely something that Issei couldn't let happen or else irreparable damage would occur. I shouldn't have said anything. Why was I so stupid? Issei beat himself up mentally as he tried to sum up some courage in his thoughts. It's not your fault, partner. You knew that if you lied, it would have made things worse. By telling the truth, you reduced the impact and it lessened the emotional blow. Now, you have to get your point through. Think clearly and confess how you truly feel about her. Break her away from her harmful artificial thoughts. Dreg calmly comforted Issei as he eased out of self-punishment. Thanks, Dreg. I've got this now. Issei knocked on the door with powerful resolution. He made sure to knock loud enough so that Akino would hear. Silence followed as the doorknob shuffled. The door opened slightly, revealing Akino's face. Her eyes were still lifeless and yander-like. Issei could see behind her and saw her room in shambles. Glass was shattered, her bed was a mess. Clothes were thrown around and her belongings were scattered around. It seemed like Akino was in total inner conflict. She couldn't find a target to vent her rage and pain on, so she chose her room. Why are you here? Don't you want to go on a date with the other girls? I'm last place, after all. Akino sounded like she was going to snap, and unsurprisingly, she did within a few short seconds. You ogle the other girls. You try to strip them and you always try to have your way. You went out with the other girls and captured their hearts. And now, you leave me, a fallen angel abomination, for last. You've avoided me for the past few weeks and you look at me with frightened eyes. You always backed away and you tried not to say anything around me. It makes me angry. It makes me so sad and angry that I want to hurt something. I want to tear apart the other girls for taking you from me. I want to stab you for making me feel so much pain. You've kept me waiting for so long that I've gotten so confused. My head hurts and my heart hurts. No matter what I say or do, it won't go away. So go away. Akino's ranted words were hateful venom, and what was even more disturbing was that her voice was flat and monotone. Akino, I'm so sorry. Can you please let me in? Issei had to get in so that he could make his peace without interruption. For a moment, a glare was sent his way, but Akino opened the door so Issei could answer. It seemed like Akino still had some rationality in her mind. As Akino closed the door, Issei turned around and grabbed Akino's shoulders. Akino, I'm so sorry. I know that it looked like you were saved least for last, but believe me, that was never my intention. Akino, I left you last because I didn't know how to approach you. I was nervous and worried out of my mind. I didn't want you to misunderstand anything. I spent so much time being confused because I didn't want to let anything go wrong when I went out on a date with you. I didn't want you to get hurt either when the others said something suggestive. You always tease me. You always spoil and support me. You even comfort me when nobody else can. You helped get rid of Rainer's curse. You helped me feel confident about loving again. You're beautiful, talented, strong, smart, and sassy. You went through so much and it makes me want to help you make up for your sad childhood. I want you to know that you and all of the other girls are all important to me. Issei's words had gotten to Akino to full effect, but she still had more to say. I don't want. I don't want to lose you to the other girls. I lost my mother. I pushed away my father. And I almost lost you to Shalba and Samuel's curse. When you almost died, you were all I could think about. I spent every second crying for you. Now, you've been getting so close to the others and I've fallen back in the race. I want to wake up every morning in your arms. I want to have a family with you. I want to have a future with you. I can't do that if the other girls have taken you. I love you so much that it hurts. It hurts, Issei. My heart can't take the distance that's spreading between us. Akino finished her piece. It felt good to let her heart out. It brought a calm relief to her heart, but it wasn't enough. Akino looked at Issei with desperate and sobbing eyes. Issei looked at her and knew what he had to do to relieve her pain. Akino, I promise, I won't leave you. I won't die again like before. I know that you're scared and worried about losing the people that you depend on. So I swear, I will always love you. I won't abandon you. Issei declared out loud to her as Akino's eyes widened in surprise. Suddenly, Issei lovingly placed his lips over Akino's. The tender and passion-filled kiss confirmed to her that she wasn't last place. In fact, it was as if she was in second or even tied for first place. In Issei's head, he wasn't ranking any of the girls. They were all equal. At first, Akino froze and was taken aback by the surprise kiss, but she slowly leaned into it and reciprocated it. This was their first, full, real kiss. Akino's lips were soft and her tongue tasted sweet with her saliva mingling with Issei's. Akino couldn't get enough with the intimate contact with Issei. She was loving every minute of it. After a whole minute, they broke apart for air. When Issei looked at Akino, he could see that she was crying all over again. Akino wiped the tears from her eyes as her anger, pain, and sadness vanished. In their place, happiness, relief, and comfort emerged. Akino's eyes had also regained their life and energy, with the yander look completely disappearing. You have no idea how long. I've wanted to hear that. Akino spoke between sobs as she hugged Issei an instant. Akino repaired her room with magic and pushed Issei down onto her now fixed bed. She laid her head down on his muscled and toned chest and relaxed. I'm so sorry for making you so sad. I'm so sorry for making you wait in despair. Will you forgive me? Issei softly begged for her apology. Akino shook her head. No, it's fine, Issei. There's no need to say sorry. I know that you didn't mean to hurt me. Right now, I'm so happy that I just want to shout it to the world. I love you, Issei. Please, continue to make me happy. Akino moved up to give Issei another kiss as the two fell into passion and kissed for another full minute. The hour soon grew late and Issei and Akino decided that it was already very late, and they wanted to spend a night alone, so they agreed to sleep together in one bed. Of course, nothing sexual besides kissing happened that night, so it saved much grief. The next morning, Akino kissed Issei awake. "Good morning, Issei." She smiled sweetly as Issei's vision cleared to reveal the beautiful Yamato Nechiko. She was dressed in nothing and Issei was left in just a simple shirt and shorts. "Good morning, Akino." Issei quickly kissed her before rising out of bed. "I'm getting breakfast ready, so get changed and come down when you're ready." Akino happily walked out of the room, leaving Issei to his own happy thoughts. Issei looked at his watch and saw that the clock hands had turned green, but the watch was blaring red, with the light soon turning white and the clock hands turned turquoise. This signified that Akino had lost her yandere tendencies, but she hadn't lost the effects of the personality ray yet, or perhaps she did. When Issei walked down to the dining room table, he sat next to Rias, who was sitting to his right, and they smiled at each other lovingly. Issei looked around and felt like good things were just about to get started. As soon as he went on that date with Rias, anyway. Akino soon took the seat to Issei's left and quickly kissed him on the lips. The other girls, including Rias, looked at her with shocked and outraged looks. They all shouted in unison. Yufifififufu. Akino chuckled as she took a hold of Issei's arm. Issei looked at her kindly as he became entranced by Akino's relaxed and joyful smile. "Now, all that's left is to go on that date with Butchu. Better make it good. I wonder if she'll let me get Ekai with her too. She's been shy lately." While Issei pondered, Rias looked at him with a longing and blushed look. "Issei," Rias muttered with a soft voice. One more date in the harem, or so Rias and Issei thought. Issei was relieved that Akino was no longer exhibiting severe yandere traits. She stopped stalking him and was giving him personal space. The odd thing was that she wasn't going yufifufufu anymore, or ara either. It looked like she wasn't truly back to normal yet. Issei was currently about to leave for school, but he caught sight of Rias looking at him. Her eyes were full of longing but also reluctance. Her blue-green eyes were staring intently at him, but he saw her clutching her left. This gesture made Issei kind of uneasy. He hadn't had close contact with his girlfriend in a while actually. He was so caught up with the other girls that he had been unable to make time for her. Asia's constant demands didn't help either. She was contently trying to hog him whenever she could. In the end, Issei knew that the girls were merely acting on their feelings for him, so he didn't mind their antics in particular. Class was boring in Issei's opinion. The teacher just lectured and rambled on and didn't do much, in Issei's opinion. Walking to home from school, Issei walked out of the gate entrance and turned to his right after seeing something from out of the corner of his eye. His guess correct, he saw Rias Gremory standing by the entrance onto the school campus. Her official graduation ceremony was coming soon, so things distance was going to happen in their day-to-day lives from now on. "Rias," Issei looked at her with a quizzical, albeit happy expression. She turned to look at him and give him a bright smile that would have made his mind explode. She looked so radiant and warm that Issei wanted to jump in her arms. He hadn't spent too much time with her except for dinner and bedtime, so he missed her quite a bit. Okay, he missed her a lot. He missed her presence, her scent, her touch, her warmth, and most of all her oppai. The soft and tenderness of her bust simply made Issei despair to be in her arms so that he could snuggle up to her well-endowed assets. Realizing that his thoughts were going to leak into reality, Issei regained his composure and made a straight face. He slowly walked over to her, with Rias eyeing him gently as he approached. Holding out his hand silently towards her, Rias happily skipped forward and took hold of his hand. Issei was wondering about what caused such an unusual and carefree action, but he put that thought aside. "I was waiting, Issei." Rias smiled brightly at him as she let go of his hand and wrapped an arm around his elbow. She closed in and gave Issei a soft smooch on the cheek. Issei blushed heavily in reaction as he saw how cute Rias could be. Normally she was elegant, proud, and outright beautiful, but now she was being cute. "Were you waiting long?" Rias slowly shook her head and snuggled onto Issei's shoulder. She giggled happily in relaxation as the two ventured home. On the way, however, the atmosphere changed around halfway through the trip. Rias's eyes widened and immediately backed away from Issei in timidity. She looked away with a heavy blush and apologized. "I'm sorry, Issei-kun. That was too close for manners," she muttered out. Issei's first thought was, "She's so cute," he shouted in his mind as his consciousness took a hit from the sheer force of Rias's newfound shyness. Issei merely shook his head. No, it's fine." He dismissed her worries as the two resumed walking. Issei glanced down at his watch and it was activating again. "I wonder what's going to happen now," Issei mused to himself as he tried to prepare himself for what might come. A new effect of the personality ray was that personality changes could switch from one type of personality to another. Thankfully, Azazel was working on finding a cure for the personality ray since it was taking too long for the effects to wear off. Asia was still demanding. Kaneko was still cuddling up to him. Zenobia confiscated all of his dirty material. Irina was flaunting her body at him and was saying very lewd things to him too. Ravel was on full-on workaholic mode. Rosswace got clingy again. And finally, Akino ... She got clingy too, and she got extremely possessive and sometimes violent whenever people interrupted her time with him. She even gives vicious glares to anyone that would try to hit on Issei. Pushing these thoughts aside, the pair arrived home and walked in. Issei wasn't even inside the house for more than a very few amount of seconds until a wall smashed into him. It wasn't just any wall either. It was a bouncy and soft wall of S. They belonged to none other than Akino. Issei-kun, welcome home. She pressed her chest into his face as Issei absorbed the sensation of her soft and bouncy bosom. Out of all of the girls he met, Akino may have one of if not the largest S that he ever came across. Now all that's left for him to do is to poke them. I'm back. Issei tried to speak, but his voice was muffled by Akino's excited behavior. She quickly took his hand and led him away from the door. Rias raised her hand up to try an object, but she didn't find the will to start a fight. Akino was one of her best friends. She couldn't exactly raise her voice either. By all accounts, it was strange. Rias would have normally fought back against Akino and arguments would have ensued. A blast of lightning there and a blast of destruction there, and voila, done, the fight would be over. Now, Rias was timid, shy, yet still gentle and regal. Graduation was nearing and she wanted to spend as much time as she could with Issei before university kicked in and their time would lessen. At dinner, Rias and Issei shot looks at one another and it was clear that each missed the other's touch. Silence enveloped the two and they were merely waiting for bedtime in order to spend some intimacy together. In bed, Issei was surrounded by his lovers, but to his relief, Rias had chosen to sleep next to him instead of being in her own room. Still, Issei was a little disappointed that she was fully clothed in a pinkish-purple nightgown. What happened to not being able to sleep unless nude? Rias turned around in her sleep and faced Issei, who was still awake while everyone else was asleep. Issei, she muttered in her sleep as her hands reached out to find her desired partner. Grabbing hold of Issei's shirt, she pulled him closer to her as Issei gracefully took hold of her in his arms. Behind him, however, Akino sensed that her beloved was gone and began to wander around the bed in a subconscious effort to find him. Still, Issei was thinking about Rias. I missed being close to her. For the past few months, I haven't been able to spend time with you ever since I got preoccupied with the other girls. I'll make it up to you though, I promise. Not being able to keep his eyes open any longer, Issei drifted into sleep. Awaking the next morning, he found that Rias had disappeared from the bed. He sat up and looked around his magnificent bed and saw that everyone else was still sleeping soundly. Having gotten enough rest, Issei moved out of bed and prepared himself for the day. With breakfast over for the morning, Issei set about on planning for a date with Rias. Rias was a Japanophile, so maybe a traditional Japanese thing would work. Having lined up his thoughts on where to go in what order, Issei decided to get himself ready and then he'd pop the question on Rias. He found her sitting in her room, writing in a notebook. He knocked on the door, which made Rias jump in shocked surprise. She quickly grabbed the book and threw it into a drawer. She turned around and granted permission. Rias, are you busy, Sere? Issei casually came in, although he had a slight blush spreading on his face. Rias mere shook her head. Well, I was wondering if you wanted to go on a date with me. Issei was met with bright enthusiasm. Rias stood motionless for a few seconds and gave him an excited and happy reply. Of course, she wanted to jump up in delight, but she restrained herself. She didn't need to try and seduce him at every chance. Issei was truly happy when she accepted with so much enthusiasm. All right, we'll leave at 8 in the morning this Sere, then. Issei gave her a kiss on the cheek as he left. Originally, he would have never been so daring, but falling in love with 7 other women had made him bolder and more confident. Within a blink of an eye, Sere came and the two were dressed in casual clothes and were more than ready to head out. Using a magic circle, the two transported themselves to the first destination on their list, Kiyomizu-dera. Rias's eyes lit up when she saw the historic landmark. The Buddhist temple was a sight to behold for Rias. She loved Japan and anything related to it. They ventured inside and outside of it and saw the small waterfalls that was fed from the river outside. Rias was excited to drink the water that was said to have therapeutic properties. The water was supposed to bless with longevity, good health, and success in studies. Taking a metal cup and catching some water, Rias took a graceful sip and smiled in delight. How do you feel? Issei was nervous about whether or not she liked the place that he had taken her to. Blessed. Rias had meant that in more than one way. She felt that being with Issei and having met him was a blessing to her, and in her opinion, the effects of the water didn't mean that much. Leaving Kiyomizu-dera, they ventured around Kyoto and enjoyed each other's company as well as the sights. Desiring something sweet, Issei and Rias stopped by a shop along the streets of Kyoto and enjoyed some wagashi. They munned on their snacks and looked around at the other tall attractions of Kyoto, and they knew that they had visited all of them already. Far from done, Issei was already anxious about getting to their next destination. Issei ... Do you want to try this one? Issei was brought out of his trance when Rias held up a piece of confectionery to him. She looked timid, that alone told Issei that her personality change had come in. Accepting her gift, Issei opened his mouth as Rias slowly put it in his mouth with a smiling blush. It tastes even better when it's Rias feeding me. Issei bluntly spoke out, making Rias sputter in a frenzy. Why? Issei calmed her down when he offered a piece of his manaka. How is it? Issei managed to break her out of her stuttering, but now she was silently chewing on the confection as she tried to get her words back. It's great, especially since Issei's feeding me. She decided to return the comment to see Issei's reaction. She was disappointed when Issei merely chuckled and laughed. She pouted with puffy cheeks and a groan. She had really wanted to make him flustered. Issei got up and took Ria's hand and slowly walked over to a more quiet place so that they could go to their next destination in Japan. In a flash of light, their surroundings changed to reveal Harem Castle, a historic and long-standing location of Japanese history. Enduring through times of war, Harem Castle was a dazzling example of excellent Japanese architect. Ria just couldn't withhold her excitement as her Japanophile side came into play. She immediately grabbed Issei's hand impulsively and dragged him off to get a closer look at the castle. Being close to one of the most historic landmarks of her favorite country made her elated. After exiting the large castle, Issei proceeded to take Ria around to several other different locations. He took her to see the Great Buddha of Kamakura and the Todaiji Temple. They spent a good amount of time just relaxing around different spots while enjoying each other's company. For quite some time, unfortunately, Issei was paying attention to Ria's chest. Whenever she ran or bent forward, he could see them jumping and jiggling. This date is well worth anything that comes at me, Issei courageously declared out to the world silently as the pair arrived at their second-to-last stop, Mount Fuji. Ria and Issei marveled at the sight of Japan's largest volcano. It was intimidating, yet there was a strange connected feeling with it. Maybe it was because of Issei's descent and Ria's love for the country and its locations that made them feel connected with the land. Ria, how did you feel about our date today? Issei turned to her nervously. He hadn't intended for the date to be just some simple tour or history lesson. He had originally intended for the date to be involved with something that Ria loved, and so he came up with this idea. They ventured around Japan to see famous and historical attractions. They visited different parks and shops, and even got to taste some delicacies while they were at it. In his book, there was an okay date, but he didn't know what Ria thought of it though. Ria was blushing like crazy now that Issei brought up the topic of dating. Well, I think that it was a great date. Ria shyly spoke, though she was barely audible. Issei saw how cute she was right now and decided that he'd tease her for a bit. What made it great? Issei played coy and smiled in anticipation to watch her blush even more. Well, you thought about how much I love Japan and you took me wherever I wanted and you always stayed right next to me. We also had fun too and I felt really happy. So I think this date was really fun and nice. She had turned around to hide her blush as she tried to understand why she was getting flustered for no reason. Issei smiled and rejoiced as he crept behind her. He slyly placed his arms around her waist and drew her to him. Their body heat transmitted between them as the winter cold disappeared and they were left in a comfortable embrace. It makes me happy that you had fun. I'm sorry that I haven't spent any time with you lately. Were you lonely? Issei pulled her closer to him as he could feel some uneasiness in her. Ria gently nodded her head as she returned back to normal for a moment. I know that you still want to be Harem King and I know that a lot of women will flock to you. I know I can't exactly always be number one in your heart, so I understood that I had to share you with the other girls. I'm perfectly fine with being one of your lovers instead of the only lover. Ria turned around and flashed him a warm and happy smile. She quickly pecked his lips and soon the two began to share a passionate display of love. They had finally released each other after a powerful desire for air came over them. I want you to know that I love all of you. I love everyone at home and you too, Ria, but you. Issei cupped both sides of her face as he gave her another kiss. Ria smiled at him brightly as she leaned forward to give him a kiss on one of his cheeks. I'll still be the legal wife though. She playfully smirked at him and jogged off to explore the region around Mount Fuji. Issei looked at the time and it was around 4 p.m. so there was still some time left to do the very last thing on Issei's list. Ria, it's time to go. Issei called out to her as he quickly walked over to her. In truth, he was excited about where it was that he was going to take her. Issei, where are we going? She looked at him with a strong blush. He made it sound like Mount Fuji was their last stop before heading home. It's a secret. Issei took hold of her hand as they magically transported themselves to a different scenery. Ria was amazed to see a forest of cherry blossoms while standing on a grassy hill that had a large tree overlooking the forest under the hill. The petals of the numerous trees were already falling everywhere as if it were spring. Strangely, cherry blossom trees shouldn't even be blooming, and yet, here it was happening. The environment hadn't been bothered by winter either. There was no snow and the climate was like spring. Issei, what is this place? Ria had traveled to many places, but she had never been to such a place like this before. Azazel-sensei told me a story about a place in the human world, where there's a forest that only has spring occur instead of winter, summer, and fall. So, I spent a few weeks trying to find this place. I heard that this place embodied one of the most loved Japanese sights, the cherry blossom trees. Issei felt like he had just harvested a great fruit from his labors. Ria was touched that he had spent so much time trying to make her happy. She had seen him look over maps in his room when he was alone, and he was constantly doing research online, mostly pertaining to supernatural locations. She even heard him talking to Grafia about looking for some cherry blossom trees. Ria pulled Issei into a tight embrace and snuggled up to him. His chest had gotten broad and muscled ever since she first met him. She felt so warm and protected that she would just let everything go and spend the now with him. Issei, thank you so much for working so hard for me. I love you. Ria looked up and gave Issei a nice long and passionate kiss with her boyfriend. Sharing such a tender moment made both of their hearts run at storming power. They embraced each other tightly as they savored their long-awaited time together. Suddenly, a soft step could be heard. The couple broke apart and looked at the source of the sound and saw a once-in-a-lifetime sight. A three-horned shining white creature with 4 legs and a horse-like neck and tail had appeared. A Kirin was standing a few feet away from them. It had appeared from nowhere and regarded and bowed to them with acknowledgement and then walked away slowly. Riz and Issei merely smiled at each other as they knew that seeing and being close to a Kirin meant good fortune. Issei saw the sun going down and decided that it was time to eat. Issei summoned a magic circle and brought out a soft picnic blanket and laid it down on the soft grassy earth. Well, it's getting late, so how about we eat? Riaz was wondering about what he meant when she didn't see any food lying around except for fruits and vegetables. Issei used a piece of paper that had a magic circle engraved onto it and focused a little bit of demonic energy to summon a large array of different Japanese dishes. There was soba, onigiri, curry rice, yakisoba, chaizuk, sushi, and other types of dishes. Issei, where'd you get all of this? Riaz was amazed by the massive delectable dishes that he had brought forth. Well, I cooked a few dishes after I asked my mom to teach me, and then I had some help with learning how to cook from Asia and Akino-san. I hope it doesn't taste bad though. Issei was nervous since cooking wasn't his forte. Riaz had suddenly started to feel bashful, yet happy. Why, you didn't have to go through all of this trouble. She stuttered as she could barely withhold how happy she was. Issei gestured for her to sit next to him as he patted a spot next to him. His watch activated and it indicated that Riaz was behaving differently, so this was a chance to mess with Riaz. She awkwardly walked toward him and gingerly sat down next to him. Issei picked up a piece of fried fish and held it up to Riaz. She closed her eyes and was about to eat it until she bit down and felt nothing. She opened her eyes and saw Issei snake his chopsticks away and stick the fish in his mouth. Why? She cried indignantly as she pouted. Here she was, expecting to be fed, and all of a sudden, her boyfriend refused to feed her. Stupid Issei. She huffed as she refused to eat anything. She was hungry, but she wanted Issei to beg for her apology first. Issei held up a spiced meatball up to her, but she turned away. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that. Will you forgive me? Issei wasn't expecting such a quick apology to work, and he was right. Riaz regarded him for a moment and her willpower would have crumbled, but she willed herself to remain stubborn. Issei wondered if she was really angry with him, but he knew that she was merely messing with him. Alright, fine. I guess I'll eat all of this delicious Japanese food by myself. Issei smiled slyly as he was about to eat the meatball caught by his chopsticks. Before he got the chance, however, Riaz delved forward and ate it before he could complete the deed. Issei broke out into a laugh when he made her drop her act. Stupid Issei, you've been really cheeky lately. Riaz pouted as she clung onto him. Without further delay, they dug right into the food. When the main part of dinner was over, Riaz saw her chance to make Issei flustered. She crept closer to his face as she noticed a little bit of sauce close to his lips. But you? Issei thought she was going in for a kiss, but she did something that he did not expect. She put her lips on said area and licked it clean in a very seductive manner. Issei could feel her tongue roaming his lips and cheek as he could only sit there and take it. Issei felt his consciousness fly away at the suggestive action. Why. Issei's face turned as red as his boosted gear as he tried to regain and form his composure. Tuhi, got you. She smiled mischievously with a strong blush. Issei stammered for a few more minutes, flabbergasted, while Riaz turned around. She held her hands up to her cheeks as she made a cute, embarrassed reaction to what she just did. Why did I do that? What's wrong with me? A proper woman shouldn't be doing something like this. Riaz managed to calm herself down in due time as Issei brought out dessert. Here you go. Issei gently handed her a bowl of cream and mitsu. Riaz gingerly took hold of the dessert and ate while staring at the starry night sky. The moon was full tonight and it gave a magic glow to the landscape. Riaz, if I become independent one day, will we still be able to be like this? Riaz looked at him in surprise since they knew he would do that, but they had never really talked about it much, if at all. Riaz sighed and gave her answer. I don't know, Issei. In all honesty, I don't want to lose this, but I want you to accomplish your dreams too. I think that if we try our best, we'll always be able to be like this. You leaving my peerage doesn't mean you'll leave my life, and vice versa. Riaz caressed Issei's face as he gently held it to his cheek. She's right. Looks like I was making a big deal out of nothing. Issei threw away his unnecessary worries and continued to spend time with her. I love you, Riaz. I love you, Issei. The two shared a passionate kiss as they solidified their vow to always do their best to beat time and fate in order to remain together. As the night grew even later, at 10 p.m., the two jumped through a magic circle and returned home. The two came home refreshed, happy, and closer than ever. Still, Issei had remembering catching an odd sight before he and Riaz left the spring forest. He remembered seeing a white feather on the ground before leaving. Issei wondered if there had been another supernatural creature besides a Kirin there. Deciding that it was pointless to worry about something he didn't know enough about, he decided to get to bed since he was probably going to have full day with the others tomorrow. Snuggling into his bed with Riaz and Akino next to him on both sides, Issei fell into a relaxing and happy sleep. Outside in the sky, however, was a 12-winged angel, staring at the Hayadu residence, or more specifically, Issei. She had curly blonde hair and a very voluptuous figure. In her eyes was confliction, confusion, and longing. Sekirute, Hayadu Issei. Why does looking at you make my heart beat so quick? Gabrielle began to wonder why she had started to think of nothing but him ever since he helped protect heaven, and why her heart ached when she watched him with other women. Her answer was to arrive soon. I in time, anyways.